Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Soldier Naruto and RWBY harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Xizuma and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Armored Hero. Bet you had a good day, Miss Weiss. Pale blue eyes blinked, snapping out of a trance as a petite girl looked away from the window in her limousine, her white hair swaying as she switched her gaze to the back of a portly man driving the vehicle. She straightened her white bolero jacket and flattened her skirt, her heels digging into the floor of her limousine. It was an acceptable day, Klein. She told her butler honestly. The middle-aged man chuckled softly, his eye color shifting from brown to yellow. He was happy to hear that, knowing how overbearing her father was, add to the fact that she wanted to attend Beacon Academy, a school in Vale, instead in Atlas, only served to anger her father, resulting the man to devise a test for the girl. He dearly hoped that Miss Weiss knew what she was doing. But despite this, Klein smiled, proud of the girl for standing up for herself. I see, and where shall we go to then, Miss Weiss? Klein waited for a response from her, but he only heard silence. Miss Weiss. He tried again. The portly butler furrowed his eyebrows and he glanced back for a brief moment, catching a glimpse of Weiss staring back at the window, her eyes unfocused. Worry filled the man's heart. He knew how hard the girl wanted to get away from her home, to get away from the cold, pompous, and arrogant man that was her father, from the constant pressure as the Schneers piling on her. And recently, she would train day and night with Miss Winter any chance she could, pushing herself farther the moment her father announced his interest to keeping her here in Atlas, a month ago. Miss Weiss. The white-haired girl snapped out of her daydream. Klein. She heard a sigh from the front. I know how nerve-wracking your father's trial has put on you, but you can't help yourself if you constantly keep on thinking about it. He said. You need to relax, lassie. Weiss looked down, her eyes staring at her hands that rested on her lap. Klein, it's just. It is a lot of pressure, I know. Klein interrupted, but you need to relax, Miss Weiss. Being tense the whole time will not help you in facing your father's test. A chuckle escaped the man's lips as it curled to a small smile. You wouldn't want having Mr. Namikas advising you again, do you? From the back, Weiss's eye twitched at the mention of the name. Naruto Namikas. The boy was similar to her, born into a family that supported Atlas's military power, only that her soon-to-be company supplied Atlas with dust mined from their quarry to be used by various soldiers and huntsmen and huntress around the kingdom. The Namikases, on the other hand, manufactured highly powerful military weaponry that could even blow mountains to Kingdom Come and obliterate Grimm on the spot. Both of their families were highly respected throughout the kingdoms of Remnant, so it was natural for them to have people who didn't see eye to eye with either of her or Namikase's family. One group in particular was the White Fang. A group filled with criminal Franus who wanted to destroy everything that and what the Namikases created. For peace. They said, for equality. They reasoned to the masses. Excuses. All of it. And they tried, they tried, blowing up Schnee trains filled with dust, sabotaging Namika's weaponry, and even going as far as killing humans affiliated with either family. And then came the assassinations that shortly followed. It was no secret that the White Fang were accused of Minato and Kushina Namika's deaths, a tragedy that hit their son, Naruto, hard, having to lose both of his parents at a young age. Add to the fact that he now had an entire company to run, Weiss could only imagine how stress-inducing it could be. He was only 17. The same age as her, running a multi-million company tasked to supply the military with powerful weaponry, it was surprising to her that Naruto didn't have gray hairs by now. And again, he was always determined, add to the fact that almost every Atlas citizen that did not know the Namika's CEO personally, only knowing the personality he had whenever he had to be in public. Maybe that was the reason, she thought. From what the citizens of Atlas knew, Naruto Namikas was the genius, studious, and charismatic CEO of Namikas Industries. However, she knew who Naruto Namikas really was. In the inside, Naruto was just someone shoved into the light just like her, to be constantly pressured to be perfect, to represent their families in their highest honor. He was a kindred spirit. But Naruto didn't care for that, he just did what he wanted. At least, that was what the public thought. The boy was famous for throwing extravagant parties, not like the ones that her father forced her and Winter attend, no. But the ones where it was wild and flashy, if the stories were true. He also drank alcohol, which did not help him in the slightest, given that he was also known to show up in meetings, drunk, in a business suit that looked like he just fought beals with his bare hands. This of course, slightly messed with the blonde's reputation, while half of Atlas, primarily the military and fellow companies, see Namikas as a fellow businessman rival, the other half view him as a delinquent, a playboy known for his rather crazy parties. In reality, Naruto did all of this to distract himself from the stress. From the repetitive request for more weaponry from General Ironwood himself. From the annoyance of nosy reporters flocking to his face. From everything. He drowned all of his sorrows in alcohol. And she knew all of this. She knew him since they were children. Weiss saw him grow from the boy she would play with whenever his parents would visit, her only friend that didn't want her for her fame, money, or looks. Her one true companion when her father focused on the company while her mother wasted away in their garden, drinking booze 24/7. And now here he was. A contrast to who he was years ago, from a cheerful boy who would smile at a bad situation, who can cheer her up by just saying a couple of words, and a friend who would go through anything for her. To a playboy who drank alcohol, threw parties almost every week, and was now a rival in the business world she would soon be introduced to. Weiss sighed, slightly slumping in her seat as she mulled her head over her inner crisis. "Let's just head for home, Klein." She ordered her butler. "I'm sure father would worry if I might stay out too late." "Man, this is boring." A sigh escaped a young man's lips, his hand curled into a fist that dug into his whiskered cheek as he looked out the window of the car he was in, desert sand, with a few dusty rocks jutting out here and there, as far as the eye could see. "I feel so bored," he muttered to himself, blowing a golden lock that laid on the middle of his forehead. Cerulean eyes glanced aside, an Elysian soldier that sat beside him, his face hidden from view from within the helmet that all Alta's military personnel wore. "This is boring, right?" The Elysian soldier briefly looked back at the teen before his eyes immediately turned away in nervousness. The young man sighed, his lips tugging down as he straightened his suit jacket's creases before adjusting the orange tie around his neck. Loud music blared in the radio, which was the only sound that filled the militaristic car, aside from the wheels and hums of the engine. "I feel like you're driving me to a court-martial. This is crazy. What did I do?" the blonde asked. He hummed and switched his gaze from the window to the soldier. "I feel like you're going to pull over and snuff me," he accused. Silence reigned. "What? You're not allowed to talk?" the whiskered teen asked. He snapped his fingers to gain the attention of the Atlasane soldier next to him. "Hey buddy." Nervously, the man changed his gaze to the teen next to him. "You can talk, sir," he blurted out, tense as a board. Naruto Namikas gave the older man a look. "Oh, I see how it is." He nodded, "So it's personal." "No, you intimidate them," a feminine voice explained from the driver's seat. Naruto's eyebrows raised up in surprise and he shifted slightly, taking a better look on the person driving. "Badam, you're a woman," Naruto said, "with all that armor you're wearing, I honestly couldn't have called that." He admitted, turning to the soldier next to him, "I mean, I'd apologize, but isn't that what we're going for here?" He joked. The three Elysian soldiers cracked smiles at the young CEO's humor as the jeep navigated through the desert path of Vacuo. "I thought of you as a soldier at first," Naruto said bluntly. "I'm an airman, usually working with the boys in the bullheads back at Atlas," the woman corrected. "Well, you actually have excellent bone structure," Naruto complimented. "I'm having a hard time not looking at you now, is that weird?" he asked, his face scrunching in mock confusion. The soldiers laughed heartedly. Naruto seemed to smile at this. "Come on, it's okay to laugh," the young man encouraged with a small chuckle of his own. As the laughter died down, the soldier seated in front of him turned around and faced him. "Sir. I have a question." "Shoot. Is it true that you're dating Weiss?" he asked, a slight nervous tone in his voice. Naruto's eyebrow raised up in a questioning demeanor. "That rumor's still up. Geez, people have nothing to talk about these days." He rolled his eyes. It was no surprise when he caught wind of the rumor, a rumor of him supposedly dating the heiress of the SDC. But it was a bit understandable, news outlets and magazines, coupled with gossipers, wanted something new and fresh to talk about. And that included his love life. So, when the supposed real news of him dating his childhood friend potential rival, he was quick to shut it down. Normally, he would ignore it, knowing that it would eventually fade away, but he knew how Weiss would act if he didn't outright say that they weren't dating. Hell hath no fury than a woman scorned, especially if said woman was a shni and a known tsundere. "Nope, sorry to disappoint, but that's a no." Naruto shook his head. "Anything else?" The soldier beside him raised his hand. Naruto's eyes looked at the soldier's raised appendage and looked back at his face dryly. "You're kidding with the hand up, right? Is it cool if I take a picture with you?" he asked, ignoring the whiskered blonde's question. "Yes, it's very cool." Naruto grinned, gaining a large smile from the man next to him as he grabbed his scroll from his pocket and handed it to his fellow soldier in front of him. The CEO looked at the soldier next to him, who was holding two fingers up. "Please, no gang signs." The soldier nodded and lowered his hand. "Nah, I'm kidding, throw it up." Naruto smirked before he turned back to the Elysian soldier holding the scroll. "Yeah, peace. I love peace. There'd be no huntsman with peace." The scroll lit up in preparation. before an explosion sounded off. The jeep that drove in front of them exploded, causing theirs to abruptly stop as the parts scattered around the vacuo desert. Shit. Naruto summed up their collective thoughts. Sounds of gunshots fired off as screams were heard in the other car behind them. Contact, left. The driver called out and loaded her weapon, opening the door and getting off. It wasn't even a second before her head snapped back and she fell, dead on the spot. The Elysian soldier that held the scroll dropped it as he grabbed his rifle. Just as he was about to leave, he turned to the other soldier with a stern face. "Stay with Namikas." The man nodded and turned to the young teen. "Stay down. Hey. I can defend myself, you know." Even as he protested, Naruto begrudgingly lowered his head as the chaos outside started to get more violent. Another gunshot rang out and the soldier that stepped outside fell dead. Naruto backed up in shock as he patted his body, feeling for his scroll. The soldier next to him cursed, "Son of a bitch." He shouted and loaded his rifle as he too stepped out of the militaristic vehicle. He looked back at the teen frantically. "Stay here," he ordered before started firing back. From the window, Naruto caught a glimpse of a bloody symbol he was all too familiar with. "White Fang," he whispered. Before he could do anything else, a loud bang sounded off to his side and Naruto only saw the previous soldier sliding off the jeep, blood on the cracked window. Cursing, the blonde pulled the door handle and quickly opened it, running towards cover that took form of a rock. As he hid behind it, Naruto glanced at the chaos around him, seeing as more soldiers lay dead before his eyes, while others critically injured. A glint from a jeep caught his attention and Naruto turned to inspect the object. His weapon. Standing up, the blonde made a beeline towards the vehicle that held his weapon, making sure to use his aura to block as many bullets as he could. His aura flickered as more and more bullets went his way. He was so close. Just a few feet away. An explosion destroyed the vehicle, knocking Naruto away, his weapon blasted to pieces. He instantly stood up as he coughed up blood, a colored sheen glowed along the length of his body, a sign that his aura was depleted from the blast and bullets. For the faunus. A scream was heard from the surrounding area. Thinking quickly, the teen slid away from the wreckage and took cover behind another rock, his hands grabbing his scroll as he did. The sound of something impacting the dirt caught the blonde's attention and he craned his head towards the object stiffly. A missile, lodged in the sand, with crude painting of the Faunus extremist group on it. Along with the words. Namikas Industries. Shit. He tried to get away from it. Too late. It exploded. Naruto let out a sharp gasp as he laid on the sandy ground, rubble and rock, along with a few scraps of car parts scattered around him. His ears kept on ringing, nullifying the sounds around him as the chaos grew. He looked at his dress shirt, slowly getting stained by a deep crimson color. His blood. Slowly, he looked up to the sky. Then, he saw white. Weiss walked around the halls of the Schnee mansion in a leisure pace, her hands behind her back as her heels clicked on the marble floor of her home. It was a nice day in Atlas, the sun was shining and the weather seemed delightful during this time of year and she took advantage of it, training at the court of her family's estate from morning to afternoon. Currently, she was taking a small break from her daily schedule, taking Klein's advice to heart as she walked around the estate with nothing to do. Wasn't this the day the idiot was supposed to come back from his little weapons demonstration of his? Of course, by idiot, she meant Naruto. Because despite all the genius he had, the boy was still the goof she met in her childhood years. Always the one who would prank her or her father on a daily basis. Why am I even thinking about him? Weiss thought, not like I care if he returns or not. She gave a silent HMPH as she walked. That Tsundere is strong in this one. She entered the living room and sat down on the velvet couch in an elegant position as she took hold of the remote and pointed it towards the large television that her family rarely used. As she watched the various channels it offered, she ordered a few maids to bring her some tea to pass the time. After a few minutes of channel surfing, Weiss deemed it a waste of her time to watch television, grabbing the remote and preparing to turn it off. Before static consumed the screen. The girl blinked in surprise. Was the cable broken again? Before she could question further, a new image entered the screen, displaying a group of people holding weapons, as their faces were hidden by grim masks, surrounding one person tied up to a chair, a sack on the person's face. One man in particular was different from the rest, his hair red as two small bull horns poked out of his hair, dressed generally in black, holding a katana in one hand, as he sneered at the camera, his upper features hidden by a similar mask. Behind them was a banner containing a logo that Weiss hated with passion. White Fang. She said in distaste, her face set in an angry frown. "Attention all people of Remnant," he said, pacing around the room, circling the bounded person. "Is this being broadcasted around the whole kingdom? I bring you this message to inform you that we, of the White Fang has been ignored for far too long." he began, Weiss watching in silence. For years, our kind have been treated like dirt for the past years, used as your slaves to do your bidding, and tossed aside like trash. He spat out, his tone full of venom. He suddenly chuckled, and now, we're going to do the same. The man walked towards the person in the middle before he grabbed the sack harshly. And yanked it off. Revealing a bleeding and bruised Naruto Namikas. The shatter echoed on the walls. Weiss sat silent in shock, her hands falling to her lap, dropping the teacup she held, not minding as the porcelain cup shattered on the floor, its contents oozing out. We have Namikas Industries' very own CEO in our grasp, Atlas's main supplier of weaponry for their military. He informed as the whiskered blonde blinked at the sudden awakening. Quickly, the bull Franus grabbed the whiskered teen by the hair harshly, forcing his head to face the camera, showing remnant the blood and sweat on his face. Just as what you did to our kind, he will do the same. The red-haired man said, briefly craning his head to look at the blonde, since I'm so generous, I will give you a month to decide. During this time period, Namikas will be crafting weapons to help us on our goal for equality. This is what happens when you humans cross the line. This is what happens when you cross the white fang. Then there was static. He woke with a gasp. Naruto coughed roughly as a cold chill breezed through his body. He didn't know where he was. It was cold. He felt enclosed. He felt sore. It was dark, the only light source coming from an old lamp that sat a few inches away from him. An itch on his nose irritated him and he moved to scratch it. Only to feel thin plastic when he touched it. What the hell? His hand went to grab the thin plastic before he realized what it was. A tube of some kind digging deep into his nose. Immediately, he yanked it, using both of his hands as the strand extended. He dropped the tube and removed the tape that stuck to the edge of his nose. Craning his head slightly, he noticed a small cup that laid on a table beside him. Slowly, he held his hand up and clenched it. Nodding, he reached over and tried to grab the refreshment. Annoyance took over as he tried to reach for the cup, to no avail. He felt something tugging on him, as if holding him in place. Once more, he tried, forcefully this time, only for it to fall off and spill its water on the stone floor. Damn it. He grunted before his eyes noticed a kettle that was also on the table, sitting a few inches from where the cup last stood. Naruto rolled over slightly and tried to grab it. I wouldn't do that if I were you. A new voice warned. The blonde stopped for a moment and turned to face the direction of the voice. Standing not too far away from him was a girl dressed in white and black, holding a book in her hands as she stared at him, her amber and cat-like eyes piercing into him. Speaking of cats, two black cat ears poked out of the girl's raven hair, revealing her to be a faunus. Her back leaned against the stone wall, one leg propped in the same position as she stood next to a metal door. What? Getting a drink? Naruto retorted with a bit of bite in his tone. The raven-haired teen didn't seem to be affected by what he said, a lone eyebrow being raised was her only reaction. If you want that battery to be plugged out from the only thing that's keeping your heart beating, then sure. Be my guest. She shrugged nonchalantly. Naruto blinked. Battery? What bat? He didn't finish his question. The moment he rolled over, he saw what the catgirl was referring to. The car battery, connected to a wire that plugged into the middle of his chest, wrapped under bloodied bandages that looked dirty as the cave he was trapped in. What the hell did you do me? Your cellmate saved your life. Naruto didn't even question who she was referring to, he started to pat his bandaged chest, feeling cold steel that felt round and hard. Slowly, the whiskered blonde peeled away the bandages, a feeling of dread washing over him as he removed the last set of medical tapes. Sticking out of the middle of his chest was a circular metal object that had wires attached to it, running down to the battery that sat beside him. Like hell they did. Naruto snarled. Miss Belladonna speaks the truth. Another voice chimed in. Naruto turned his head to the side when another figure came out of the shadows. He was an older man, balding, with a scruff that looked like he hadn't shaved for months, wearing a torn and worn business suit. Yinsen, you're awake. The teen said in surprise, lowering her book as she did. The man Yinsen nodded wryly, yes. I can never seem to sleep peacefully these days. He admitted tiredly. For some reason, the cat Franus seemed to flinch at what he said. What did you do to me? Naruto asked silently as he hugged the car battery to his chest, watching as Yinsen sat down on one of the broken chairs, stirring a bowl of soup, whistling a tune as he did. What I did? He repeated, chuckling. What I did was saving your life. Yinsen watched, amused as Naruto looked at the new addition to his body in a mirror. I removed all the shrapnel that I could. There's still a lot more, heading for your heart. The man explained, here, take a look. He handed the blonde a small bottle, tossing it, which Naruto caught. The blonde inspected it and saw tiny shards of metal that used to belong to the various missile heads he manufactured for Atlas. He slowly placed it down before he looked at Yinsen while he pointed at his chest. What is this? That. Yinsen rose an eyebrow. That is an electromagnet hooked up to a car battery, keeping the shrapnel from entering your heart. He explained. The man then turned towards the faunus that stayed silent during the whole exchange, opting to read her book rather than hear what they said. I'm assuming it's your shift for watching over us, Miss Belladonna. The girl shook her head. No, Adam wants to talk to you and Namikas. She answered. I was only here to wake him up. With that, she left, opening door and closing it shortly. She's probably real fun at parties, isn't she? Naruto stated dryly, prompting the man to chuckle. Miss Belladonna usually keeps to herself. He informed. Naruto looked around the room, noting silently that the walls looked rocky and dusty. A jagged rock pillar stood in the middle of the room, where he spotted a CCTV camera that zoomed in. Insen noticed where the blonde was looking at and smiled. That's right, smile. Naruto looked at him questioningly, taking note that the man's smile looked forced, as if he was supposed to do that every time the camera spotted them. Where are we? The whiskered teen asked. Where? The door slammed open, revealing two faunus dressed in the same grey uniform that had hoods which were down, while grim masks were on their faces. On your feet. Humans. One of the faunus barked, venom in his tone as he did, as Yinsen pulled Naruto up and whispered to him. Do as I do, put your hands up. He instructed, to which Naruto did. Another figure entered the cell, a bull faunus, from the two horns that poked from his red hair. Namikas. The bull faunus started, it's an honor to meet you. Seems that way. Naruto snorted. The red-haired faunus didn't react to what he said before he walked forward. You're the only human I respect, you don't treat my kind like dirt and you pay them the same amount as humans. He said, so I'll give an offer. The man looked at him. Build us the new prototype artillery missile you displayed in your demonstration here in Vacuo and we'll set you free. Naruto stayed silent, glancing at the bull faunus before switching his gaze to the white fang members that flanked the red-haired man. He took a deep breath. I refuse. There was silence. Insen suddenly pounced at the teen, an angry snarl on his visage as he raised his fist and proceeded to strike the blonde multiple times. No. You do not refuse. After more strikes, the man placed him down. Naruto spat out blood and looked up at the bull faunus, who had a deep frown on his face. That is unfortunate. He said. Turning his heel, the faunus shorty left the two prisoners, the other white fang members following after. I apologize for what I did to you. Yinsen broke the silence. It was a better than the alternative. Alternative? Naruto asked, rubbing his jaw. Man, does the guy hit hard. Before Yinsen could say anything else, two faunus burst into the room before grabbing Naruto forcefully, stuffing a sack over his head before kicking him out the cell. Naruto tried to stand, only for one hand to grab the collar of his jacket roughly and forced him to move. Move it, human. A gruff voice ordered harshly. After a few moments of walking, a natural light hit Naruto's covered face before the sack was forcefully removed. He blinked rapidly, his eyes trying to get used to the sun's rays hitting his face after not feeling it for so long. The blonde noticed two crates set down on the sandy ground in front of him, all bearing the logo of Atlas on its lid. One faunus walked over to it and kicked open the crate, revealing missile heads that his company created. Are these familiar to you? The bull faunus from before gestured towards the crates. The prototypes, Naruto whispered. The faunus nodded. We have all the necessary parts you need to build this weapon. He informed. He walked closer to Naruto. I must ask you to reconsider our offer, will you build it for us? Naruto stayed silent. Before he looked up at him defiantly. No. That seemed to set the faunus off. The moment the blonde said that, the bull faunus grabbed the sheathed katana on his hip and struck the CEO with its sheath. How dare you, he snarled. The faunus crouched down and harshly gripped Naruto's hair, forcing the teen to look at him. He tightened his grip and slammed the blonde's head on the ground. And again. And again. From the side, the cat faunus from before flinched and looked away at the ongoing torture. The other faunus didn't seem to mind. After the fifth or sixth slam, the bull faunus released the blonde, watching as the near knocked out teen lay limp. Blake, Naruto heard the man say. Take him back to his cell. Then, he passed out again. As the days pass, the white fang continued to convince the blonde to build the weapon. Yet, each time, he refused. Naruto sighed as he sat at the corner of the cell he was in, his hand often scratching the magnet his cellmate built him. How many days had passed already? A week? 2? 5? He didn't know anymore. Why do you still refuse? A familiar voice came from the cell's door. The blonde jumped in slight surprise and turned his head. Standing beside the door was the Blake girl he regularly see the bull faunus with. What do you want? Blake glared at him. For the past few weeks the girl had been trying to comprehend why the blonde still refused Adam's offer, even if he had offered the CEO a way back to Atlas if he just complied. But even still, he didn't. It was starting to pique the girl's curiosity. "You still refuse, even if Adam gave you a change of mercy, but you didn't take it," Blake said. "You know what he's gonna do you." Naruto shrugged as if he had no care in the world. "Yeah, he'll kill me," he answered casually. This only served to frustrate the girl more. "Then why refuse?" she asked, her voice unintentionally raising up. "'Cause they need me," Naruto said. "If they'll kill me, who else is going to build their weapon for them?" "How about you, huh?" Naruto suddenly said. "Why join them?" Blake backed up from the question. "I what? Why join the White Fang?" Naruto asked. "Isn't it obvious?" Blake said. "The White Fang's fighting for equality, for the faunus. For the ones that suffered prejudice and racism all their lives. We're fighting against injustice." She didn't know when she got emotional during her mini speech, but somehow she did. But it didn't seem to faze Naruto, who only had an eyebrow raised. "Equality, huh?" The blonde repeated. "Are we looking at the same group? 'Cause I sure as hell remember the White Fang you're describing disappeared about 5 years ago." Blake glared at Naruto for the statement. "We got pushed too far and we just." "What?" Naruto interrupted. "Cause fights. Kill politicians. Kidnap CEOs. Steal dust. Is this what equality is now?" She opened her mouth. Yet no words came out. How could she refute it? It was all true. Even she had noticed it, the very reasons she, herself, had came upon, which started to make her doubt the organization. "But you really think fear is gonna help the faunus?" Naruto continued. "Fear creates hate creates war, and war is never good." Realization dawned upon the blonde as he said that. It's a never-ending cycle. And he was part of it. The CEO stayed silent even as Blake left shortly. All he did was sit, staring down at the ground. He had a lot to think about. A few hours passed and Naruto was currently looking down on a missile warhead that the White Fang gave him after he had requested them and a few more items. He remembered Adam having a satisfied smile on his face when he listed the items that he needed. Smug bastard. They all thought he finally accepted. Little do they know. Vincent looked over at what the blonde was doing curiously. "Are you actually going to build it?" he questioned. Naruto laughed. "Hell no." He then promptly slammed his elbow down on the missile head, breaking it as the part scrambled on the table. The whiskered teen took a small piece with one hand and showed it to the older man. "In the missiles are little metals called palladium," Naruto informed before he set it back down on the table. "First things first. We need to change the magnet stuck to my chest so I don't have to lug a car battery around. Mind to break down the other missiles for me?" Vincent nodded and walked over to the other warheads placed in the corner of the room. Naruto smirked and flexed his fingers. "Time to get to work." Careful, Naruto cautioned, leading Yinsen, who grabbed a cup filled with something smoldering. "Relax, I have with steady hands." The man reassured before he poured the contents of the cup into a mold. A few minutes passed before Naruto grabbed a small metal ring formed from the mold. He inspected it in detail until he was satisfied with it and placed it on another ring. An hour passed as Naruto soldered small metal objects together, which later formed a few metal braces. The blonde often fixed his postures and moved as he soldered the braces. Soon after, the braces formed into something akin to a small flashlight part, decorated with metal braces that the blonde previously soldered. Hooked up by wires that led to a generator powered by dust. Naruto slowly twisted a knob and the object soon started to glow as the dust started to transfer into the small object. Vincent walked up to Naruto, eyeing the object. "That doesn't look like the prototype." "It isn't," Naruto said. "It's a miniaturized arc reactor, only this one's powered by dust. It'll keep the shrapnel out of my heart." "What does it generate?" Naruto focused on the reactor as he twisted the knob more. "If my math is right," he twisted it again. "About 3 gigajoules per second." Vincent widened his eyes a bit at how much power such a small object could create. "That could run your heart for 50 lifetimes," Vincent muttered. "Or 15 minutes. Naruto pointed out the possible alternative. He walked over to a table, which held a thin stack of papers on the wooden furniture. Turning on a lamp, the light shining on the table as he placed the papers on top of each other. "This." Naruto pointed at the papers. "Is our ticket out of here?" Vincent tilted his head, trying to look at it at a better angle. "What is it?" "Flatten the picture and you'll see." And the older man did just that. A week had passed, and Blake Belladonna could honestly say that she had rather grown closer to the prisoner they kept. It started out as mild curiosity after what the blonde had told her about the White Fang. Her thoughts on the organization had started to change. Well, that was a lie. It had started to change longer than that. Ever since the first time the group had turned violent, she had started to have doubts. It grew, every day it grew. From every raid they did. Every train they sabotaged, her doubt just grew every second. And Naruto just made her realize it. The words he said kept repeating in her head every day, the words still rung in her ears. She couldn't think straight. It honestly made her mind into a mess. She sighed as she watched the many Fronis that had been stationed here in the caverns in Vacuo. She was one of them, at least temporarily. Adam had left for Vale hours ago. She needed to rest for a bit. Just as she was about to stand up, something happened. An explosion sounded off in the caves. She completely stood up in alarm as the other White Fang members raced to the caverns. Only for a bulky figure to come out of the darkness. Naruto was angry. No scratch that he was livid. If he had only been a few seconds faster, then this wouldn't have happened. Inson was dead. And he was to blame. He memorized what the older man told him in which direction to go to. Bullets hit the metal armor he wore as the arc reactor in his chest shined brightly, acting as a pseudo-flashlight for him. From the inside of the bulky helmet he wore, Naruto heard the various shouts the White Fang members cried out. All of it related to stopping him. One of them intended to strike him with a blade. An uppercut to the face would stop that. He made his way toward the exit of the cave, large metal thumps following after every steps he took. Even though the helmet blocked most of his vision, he could still see the light that penetrated the cavern. Just a few more steps. No matter how bulky the armor was, he still felt the rays of the sun. He was free. Well, not exactly. The fact that almost every White Fang member stationed in the caverns had surrounded him attested to that. All of them trained their weapons on him. Silence filled the area. Before they all pulled their triggers. Despite the hundreds of bullets that hit the armor, nothing happened. Metal hit metal, but the armor never relented. Thumps were heard all over the armor as the bullets hit him. Yet, he just stood there, soaking all of it like a sponge. Finally, they stopped. My turn. With that, Naruto activated the flamethrowers built on the undersides of the metal arms. As soon as the fire reached the group, they turned tail and ran. Naruto switched his targets to the boxes of weapon that the White Fang stole. And burned it all. The sound of machinery was heard. Naruto turned his head. Across from him was a White Fang member that mounted a cannon that looked to be of Atlesian tech. Okay, maybe that could hurt him. Survive this. Before he could fire, a figure appeared behind him. The familiar black bow was the only thing Naruto needs to recognize who that was. Blake struck the White Fang member, rendering him unconscious. The girl turned to face the blonde. Oh. No other words were needed to be said. The blonde took off to the skies. And after about 10 to 5 minutes, he started to fall. He struck the sandy ground harshly. Pieces of the suit tore apart as shards of the armor fell to the sand below him. Naruto ripped off the helmet and tore off the excess armor. He crawled and crawled. Till he saw figures just in the distance. The sounds of bullheads filled his ears. And he saw a familiar shade of white. Winter. That was all he muttered before he succumbed to unconsciousness. Though, even through the hardships he had faced during his time in captivity, he learned one thing. Heroes weren't born. They were built. Armored hero. Remnant was in a buzz. Articles were printed and sold, radios talked endlessly, while news outlets all covered one thing. The return of one Naruto Namikas. The trip from Vacuo to Atlas was smooth, boarding one bullhead to another, until they finally got to the final transportation, which was a larger Atlesian airship which could house a medium-sized car. The airship touched down on the pavement in Atlas's own military airbase, where General Ironwood himself was waiting for the young CEO's arrival. The doors slowly slid down, making a ramp as a squad of Atlesian soldiers walked down the ramp. Naruto soon appeared, looking better than before, wearing a suit with a sling supporting his right arm, while Winter helped him down to meet the high-ranking general. "This me, General." Naruto greeted his father's old partner with a grin. Ironwood had a small smile of his own. "Glad to see a bit of Minato in the man's son. It's been quiet in Atlas without your usual noise." James smirked. Naruto laughed. "Let me fix that." He continued the banter before his eyes landed to two white-haired people behind the general. But first. The man stepped aside as the CEO walked towards a white-haired man. "Zoc, how are you doing?" Naruto greeted the mustached CEO with a thin smile. He never did like the man, but for appearance's sake, he'd try to be friendly. The Schnee regarded the blonde with quick greeting. "Namikas?" The man grunted. Looks like the feeling was mutual. Naruto moved towards the white-haired girl beside the Schnee. He grinned at her. "Your eyes are red." He noticed. "Did you miss me?" Weiss sniffed and wiped away something that was definitely not a tear in her eye. "Shut up," she yelled. "Who would miss you anyways?" Naruto just kept grinning like a loon. He missed these kinds of banter. "Well, if you're done talking with Mr. Namikas, I'll be at the estate," Jacques said hurriedly, giving the young CEO the stink eye as he left with Klein. Naruto just rolled his eyes at the man's obvious distaste. Weiss suddenly found the floor interesting as her father's limousine rolled out of the military zone. Naruto. Winter's voice cut through the awkward silence that came. The CEO turned his head towards her, seeing the woman standing next to a car that was supposed to be his escort. Naruto soon entered the vehicle, Weiss following shortly, sitting beside him. Winter sat herself at the front seat. "Where to, sir?" the designated driver asked. "Take us to the hospital," Winter was about to say. Naruto immediately cut her off. "No." Weiss turned to the blonde in shock. "Are you even taking this seriously?" she hissed at him. "Weiss, there is two things that I want right now," he said seriously. "One, I want Raymond." "Of course you would say that," Weiss muttered, rolling her eyes. "And two, I want a call for a press conference now." "Are you even taking this seriously?" Weiss hissed at him. Yes, I am." "Driver, go. Raymond first." Winter sighed and glanced at the blonde with a look. "Naruto." "Winter, I've been held in captivity for a month, I just need this one press conference. Please." "What for?" Naruto didn't answer, opting to look out the window as the car started to move. "You'll see. This is peculiar." A man dressed in green hummed as he stood in the hallways of the military base. He looked. From the outside, news reports and journalists alike were standing in crowds, all holding out microphones and their scrolls. "What is, Osborne?" Ironwood glanced at his fellow headmaster. "Is it rather strange that young Namikas would call for a press conference like this after immediately returning from vacuo?" Osborne asked, stirring his mug. "Perhaps he would like to speak out, answer some questions people would have after his recent kidnapping, maybe." James mused quietly. Osborne stayed silent. "Perhaps." The sudden noise outside caught the two headmasters' attention. The door soon opened, revealing Naruto himself. "And the guest of the hour arrives," Ironwood muttered. Osborne gained an amused smile. Reports flocked to the CEO, assaulting him with question after question before they made way for him to get on the podium. Ironwood walked behind the podium, whereas Naruto sat in front of it, holding a steaming bowl of ramen. Winter, followed by Weiss, stood at the sidelines. The blonde set aside the bowl and cleared his throat. "Would it be alright if everyone sat down?" Naruto asked, "That way you can see me and I can be a little less formal." The news reporters and journalists complied, as did Weiss and Winter, along with Osborne and a blonde-haired woman next to him, while Ironwood crouched down next to the CEO. Scrolls were soon took out as the press conference began. Weiss fixed her skirt as she sat down, flattening it and fixing her posture. The voice caught her attention. "Weiss." The heiress looked behind her. Standing was a boy her age, with black hair that was swept back, wearing a standard Atlesian uniform. His charcoal black eyes looked at her with a questioning gaze. "Sasuke." Sasuke sat down next to her. "I thought you were stationed near the borders?" Weiss asked. "I got out of my station as soon as I heard Naruto was back." The boy explained, knows how much trouble that idiot causes." He shifted his gaze to the blonde in question. "What's he doing now?" Weiss rolled her eyes. "Don't look at me. I'm not the one who wanted this press conference." The chatter soon quieted down as they focused their attention to the blonde up front. "You know, I never got say goodbye to my father." Naruto began, "These questions I would ask about what his company did." He said, if he was conflicted, if he ever had any doubts of if he was the inch of the man we knew, the man we remember him by. "It's been barely 2 years since I took over my family's company," Naruto said, adjusting his sling. "And I continued the business, building weaponry to assist our soldiers and huntsmen alike." He looked at the audience of reporters and then, "I saw people, human and Franus alike, killed by the very same weapons I created to defend them and protect them." His mind flashed back to the girl that helped him escape. "And I saw that I had become part of a system that is comfortable with zero accountability. And a cycle of war that won't stop." From the crowd, hands rose up as reporters called the man's name to get his attention. Naruto motioned the man up front. The reporter looked nervous before he leaned in. "What happened over there?" The noise died down as they waited for a response. Naruto closed his eyes before opening them a few moments later. "I had my eyes opened," he suddenly exclaimed, getting up from the front of the podium before walking behind it. "I came to realize that I had more things to offer Remnant than making things blow up, and that is why I am shutting down the weapons manufacture division of Namikas International." Cameras flashed left and right as the crowd went wild. "Mr. Namikas." "Sir, if you would please answer this question." "Mr. Namikas, over here please." The reporters and journalists stood up and shouted his name, begging for more answers as they flocked to the front while Ironwood helped Naruto up. From the sides, Osborne sipped his coffee, his eyes trailing the young blonde exiting the building. "Interesting." The crowd tried to follow the general and CEO, only for them to be disappointed when they went up in a waiting airship. "Naruto." James called out. Yes. What you did was bold move in your part, and while I respect that, I have to ask, why? Naruto stayed silent for a moment. You know the reason, General. The blonde said, glancing at the older man. Shutting down the weapons division of my company is better than having it do the same thing it's done since my dad was still here. Naruto explained. I don't want to soil my father's legacy. But I also want my company's weapons can do in the wrong hands. The danger it can produce if the White Fang or any other kind of group get their hands on it. His fist clenched. I don't want innocent blood dirtying everything my dad's built. James looked surprised at how genuine the young man sounded. Was this really the boy a month ago? I see. The general said. Nonetheless. I respect your decision. I just hope you know what you're going to do once the backlash of your choice comes back to you. Now, if you excuse me, Naruto slid off Ironwood's hold, I'll be heading back at Namikas Industries. About that, Mr. Namikas. James grabbed the boy's shoulder. What? During your absence, the board of directors for your company is claiming a post-traumatic stress dysfunction. James explained. They're filing you a junction. The what? They're locking you out. Ironwood clarified. I don't have PTSD. Naruto argued heatedly. That's yet to be seen, Naruto. James tried to calm the young man down, for now, until you take some medications. The board is going to keep you locked out. Naruto growled, but nodded. So, in the meantime, would you consider going into Atlas Academy? Ironwood offered. We could use bright students like you. I was about to say the same thing, James. A new voice interrupted. The two turned their heads to the newcomer as the tapping of a cane echoed in the airship. Professor Osborn? Naruto asked. The man in question smiled and nodded. In the flesh. Osborn? James looked at his friend. I thought you went back to Vale. The professor sipped his mug, a hidden smile on his face. Well, I was, at first, going to do that. I wouldn't miss the chance of recruiting someone such as Mr. Namikas here into Beacon. He said. So, how about it? Osborn asked bluntly. Miss Schnee also plans to attend. You two could go together. Weiss is going to Beacon. Naruto asked. I thought she was attending Atlas's academy. Miss Schnee and her father had a rather falling out recently. James admitted. Okay. I get it. Naruto nodded. He already knew why Weiss wanted to get away from her asshole of a dad. Back to the topic at hand. The general cut off. Naruto, your choice. I think the blonde started, I'll give an answer later. He finished. I just need a bit of rest. Very well then. Ironwood said. I'll tell the pilot to head for your company. Actually, General. Naruto interrupted, I'll be staying at Vale for a while. He said. Since I have nothing to do here at Atlas, I thought might as well treat it as a vacation. Right. Osborn's smile widened. But the boy in Vale, he had more of a chance to snag him into Beacon than James had into Atlas's academy. I see. James tried to not sound disappointed. And what will you do in Vale? Naruto smirked. I've been thinking of a personal project lately. Night at Vale was peaceful, Naruto mused. It was far more quiet than in Atlas, what with the various machinery and factories that occupied the industrious kingdom. It was a stark contrast from the quiet and peaceful air that Vale's kingdom seemed to bring. He liked the change of scenery. His car's engine hummed silently under the hood as he drove over to a black gate that had the symbol of his company smack dab in the middle. He parked the vehicle in a circular area where a fountain stood in the middle, which then led to a white house. Naruto opened the glass door of his vacation home, greeted by the sight of darkness and the sound of running water at the side. The only light source was the moonlight that crept in from the balcony. He sighed happily. His home away from home. Kurama, I'm home. As he walked in, lights blurred to life, filling the dark mansion with color. Naruto waited for an answer. Kurama. You there, buddy? The new voice answered. Reporting in, sir. Naruto smiled tiredly as he walked towards the couch. There's my favorite AI. I have just been uploaded to every application in the household. How about connections? Are you connected to the server? Naruto asked, throwing his suit jacket onto the couch before he walked towards a set of stairs leading down. Online and ready to use. Good, set up security. The blonde ordered. Scroll ID as well. Sure, go ahead. He shrugged. The teen walked down the stairs, eventually facing a glass door, a keypad at the side. And while you're at it, scan the actual face. Naruto opened the glass door as it finished its scan on him. More lights came on, revealing a garage filled with exotic cars to motorcycles and choppers. On the side was a jukebox and a widescreen TV. Wide panels of glass faced the garage, giving the view of Vale's ocean overhead. The blonde walked up to 3 sets of computers and swiped his hand over the pad that sat in the middle. It glowed blue before sets of keys appeared. Sir, you have 20 missed calls. From who? Naruto asked curiously. Scroll number is Miss Weiss, sir. Naruto rose an eyebrow. The princess herself worried about me? Now that's a first. The blonde smirked. Ignore it for now, I'll listen to it later. Naruto ordered and sat down on a chair. Kurama, find dad's old files, please. The AI did as it was told and soon, a screen popped up showing various files that had numerous titles under them. Naruto browsed through them with a bored look on his face, doing this to pass the time. His boredom ceased however when a particular file caught his eye. Wait. Naruto stopped. Kurama, get the last browsed file. He said. Another screen popped up, this time showing the acquired file with a title that read. Project. Guardian. Naruto mused. Open up the schematic. The blueprint appeared in the screen, showing a schematic for an armor of some kind, heavily resembling the robotic soldiers Atlas had today. What is this? After your father helped create Atlas's knights and the recent paladins, he also had an armor planned to help Atlas's soldiers in grim and human combat. Before he called it Project Guardian. Your father simply dubbed it Project Iron Man. Interesting. Naruto eyed the schematic with a gleam in his eye. He typed something on the keyboard. Kurama, start a new folder for a project will you? He asked. Call it Mark II. Naruto took out a pen and clicked it before dragging his father's schematic onto a table. Shall I store it into Namikas Industries public server, sir? No. Keep it on a secure private server. Naruto commanded, don't want the board thinking I'm up to something again. Working on a secret project, sir. Soon, his father's blueprints for the armor popped up on the table in a 3D layer, along with the first suit he and Yinsen created back in Vacuo. I don't want this ending up in the wrong hands. Naruto explained as he flipped the mask open on the figure display. Naruto looked at the schematic and hummed before he removed a chunk of his armor's suit before transferring it into a virtual trash can. The blonde dragged some parts of his father's armor and sized it up onto his own armor, comparing the two metal contraptions. The less bulky, the better. He spun the figures around before taking out more chunks of his armor and onto the trash can. Maybe I can do some good for once. Okay, that's not good. Naruto, now dressed in a tank top and simple black panties, muttered as he leaned back, looking at a metallic boot where the rods on the back moved sporadically. Okay, up, a little higher. The buzzing of machinery clicked in response as the robotic arm held a magnifying glass while Naruto soldered near the top of a metallic boot as the rod stopped moving. He moved his hand towards the side of the boot, then continued his soldering at the edges. Sir, you have a visitor. Who is it? Naruto looked up from his work as a monitor popped up, showing a certain white-haired heiress. Weiss. Naruto shrugged, let her in. He said, before continuing with his tinkering. Shortly after, Naruto was now wearing the metallic boot, his leg also wearing another, as his hand held a metal clamp that had wires connected to his arc reactor, which glowed through the tank top. He stood on a small platform, adjusting the boots as the machinery clicked in confirmation. He looked at the robotic arm which held a camera. Is it recording? The arm moved up and down, nodding. Okay, let's do this right. Naruto announced, walking back a few feet. The teen exhaled deeply. He looked at the robotic arm behind him, which held a fire extinguisher with a look. Don't hit the lights, you're gonna stand by for fire safety. He ordered. Alright. Let's start up nice and easy, he mumbled as he got into a stance, start up on 10% thrust capacity, and he held the metal clamps tightly. 3, 2, 1. He hit the buttons. And was flying. Flying smack dab to the wall behind him, to be specific. Naruto landed with a groan of pain as the thick extinguisher covered his area, his aura luckily shielding him from potential brain damage. It still hurt like a bitch. Naruto. Weiss's voice alerted him of her presence. Weiss. Said girl rushed to his side. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Naruto assured her, rubbing his head as he did. The only thing damaged here is my pride. A bit sore on the back though. Weiss held on to his arm. Naruto looked at the robotic arm with a look. Next time, don't use the extinguisher unless I'm on fire, okay? He asked irritably. What are you doing here? Naruto turned his attention to Weiss. Also, mind letting go of my arm? Weiss jumped back a bit with a pink dusting on her cheeks as she did, watching as Naruto tried to stand up. Winter asked me to check on you while I was in Vale. Weiss explained, she gave me your address. She said, what are you doing? It's an idea I had. Naruto replied. Weiss crossed her arms and gave the teen a look. What? She huffed. You really are adult, aren't you? I take offense to that. Naruto cried out. The girl just rolled her eyes in response. You need to rest. She stated. Naruto scoffed. Nah, I'm good. He denied. Standing up completely, though slightly wobbling as he did. He successfully regained his balance and stood tall, holding his arms out. See? Before he fell backwards, hitting the ground with a thud. Ow. Was heard from the blonde. Weiss palmed her face. Help me up, please. Weiss sighed and walked over to the blonde, a hand outstretched. Naruto gladly took the hand and tried to pull up. Only for Weiss to fall too, landing on top of him in a rather certain position. There was silence. Well, isn't this awkward? The grin on the boy's face didn't help in the slightest. By this point, Weiss's entire face was red. I hate you. The girl gritted out. Naruto laughed nervously. The sound of the door opening alerted the two. Naruto Sasuke was about to say, before he stopped abruptly, staring at the scene before him. I'll leave you two alone, Sasuke slowly muttered, walking back to the door, despite the two's protests. The glass door closed with a click. We will never speak about this. Weiss grumbled as she straightened her bolero jacket with a slightly red face. Yeah, I get it. Naruto said as he placed his invention on the table. You better. Weiss fixed her hair and got ready to leave the garage. Before a hand stopped her. Weiss. The heiress turned her head to glance at the blonde. Naruto looked down and sighed. Look, I've been meaning to say that he stopped. That I'm. Weiss rose an eyebrow. That you're. Her tone took on an amused one. Naruto rolled his eyes when he noticed the tone. You really want me to say it, don't you? The girl nodded happily. Fine. I'm sorry for treating you badly the past years or so. Happy. The blonde grumbled. Weiss smiled. Very. She said and resumed her walk towards the stairs. Naruto grunted before walking back to his metallic boots. And also, idiot. Weiss's voice echoed from the door. The teen glanced at her. Weiss gave him a small smile. You're not that bad as the papers say you are. With that, she left. Naruto blinked before he smirked. Yeah. He agreed as he got back to soldering his boots. You're not that bad either. The next day, Weiss found herself entering the Namikas mansion once more. Under Winter's request, of course. As she stepped into the lavish mansion, she set her purse aside. Bolt. Her voice echoed in the large house. There was no response. Slowly, she entered the living room, hearing the running water of the mini waterfall at the side and the flickering flames of the fireplace near the front. Naruto? She asked again. Hey Weiss. An intercom sounded out, revealing to be the blonde. Quick question, how big are your hands? He asked. Weiss blinked at the random request. What? How big are your hands? Naruto repeated. She gave the camera that was zooming at her a suspicious look. Why do you want to know? Down here, I need them. Weiss sighed as the intercom went silent. Might as well, she muttered. Walking down the stairs leading to the garage, she held her scroll up to the keypad before it clicked, signaling her permission to enter. The heiress spotted the blonde quickly, seeing him laying down, shirtless, leaving his chest exposed, on a table, which was angled. Weiss quickly took notice of his appearance, particularly the small reactor that was in his chest. Also the heart monitor wired up next to him. Morning. Naruto greeted cheerfully. The girl pointed at the thing on his chest. What is that? Naruto ignored her question. Show me your hands, let's see them. He ordered. Weiss held her hands up, spreading her fingers as she did. He studied her hands for a moment before nodding. Perfect. He grasped the glowing reactor. What's that thing in your chest? Weiss voiced out her curiosity. Oh, this. Naruto pointed at the dull version in his chest. That is an antique. He said, before holding up the glowing reactor. This will be keeping me alive for the foreseeable future. Then what do you need me for? Weiss asked. I need you to replace it. He answered, so, I'll guide you in replacing it. He said. Seeing the hesitancy on the girl's face, the blonde quickly added. It's easy, it's like screwing a light bulb. Naruto reassured her. Grabbing the reactor in his chest, Naruto twisted it, unlocking it from its place and pulled it out. He then yanked the plug off and handed it to Weiss. The girl looked alarmed when he gave her the old reactor. Wait, what do you want me to do with this thing? She asked. Put it on the table, the teen gestured towards a table set up behind the girl. Setting it down shortly, Weiss turned to him. Now what? Now, I need you to reach into this tube and pull out the copper wire. Naruto instructed. Is it safe? Of course it is. It's fine, Naruto said, it's just like Operation, just don't let it touch the side. What's Operation? Weiss asked. Don't worry about it. He waved off her question, it's just a game. Just reach inside, then gently pull the copper wire out. Naruto repeated. Weiss gulped before she slowly reached inside. Just be careful. Naruto advised. The girl rolled her white sleeves to her elbow. Carefully, she slid her hand down the tube connected to the boy's chest. Her face was set into pure concentration, repeating Naruto's instructions in her head as her lithe hand made its way down the tube. Her concentration was broken, however, when she made contact with a slimy substance. Weiss made a face. "Oh, it's puss," she whined. Naruto rolled his eyes. "It's not puss, it's an endoplasmic discharge from the device," he corrected. The girl sniffed before leaning back. "It smells." "Yeah, it does." Naruto agreed as Weiss continued to reach down. "The copper wire," the blonde reminded. "Did you get it?" Weiss shifted before she felt something metallic touching her palm, she grasped it. "Yeah." The girl confirmed. "Now, when you pull it out, be careful not to touch the sides," he suddenly exclaimed, a jolt of pain striking him like lightning. I'm so sorry." Weiss apologized profusely as she tried to pull the wire out. Naruto inhaled slowly, then exhaled. "Now, when you pull it out, be sure not to pull the magnet at the end of it." The pop was heard, and the blonde saw Weiss pulling out a circular ring out of the tube. The heart monitor began to beep. "Way to go, you pulled out the magnet," the blonde pointed out. What do I do?" Weiss tried to place the ring back. "Don't put it back in." The blonde stopped her, "Don't put it back in." The heart monitor beeped once more. "What's happening?" Weiss asked frantically. "Nothing, I'm just going to a cardiac arrest because you yanked it out. I thought you said it was safe." "Look, let's just finish this." Naruto handed her the new reactor, "Just put it in." Okay. Weiss grabbed it shakily, trying to calm herself down. She looked at Naruto, "I'm going to fix this, you're going to be fine, do you hear me, dolt?" "Hear you loud and clear, princess." Naruto nodded, "Okay, now, I need you to connect the wire to the base plate at the bottom of the tube," he instructed. Weiss nodded before she grabbed the bottom of the wire and stuck the end into the tube, reaching as deep as she could, then plugged the reactor. Naruto jumped in shock before crying out in surprise as Weiss placed the reactor onto the tube. The heart monitor stopped its frantic beeps. The blonde laughed. "See, wasn't too hard, was it?" He grinned, grabbing the reactor before twisting it into place, securing its position. "Are you okay?" Weiss asked breathlessly. "Yeah, I feel great," Naruto said cheekily. Weiss went silent before she started to laugh. After a few seconds, Naruto joined in. The slap the girl gave him echoed in the garage. "Alright. Day 11. Naruto announced. His previous machinery was upgraded, the clamps now extending to his arms, where a wide orb sat in the middle of his palm. S37. Configuration 2.0, for a lack of a better option, Naruto recounted. He turned towards the bot holding the same fire extinguisher. "Dummy, is still on fire safety," he said. He gave the bot a glare. "If you douse me again and I'm not on fire, I'll donate you to Signal, got it?" Naruto warned the bot. He looked forward and cracked his neck. "Okay, nice and easy, seriously. We're gonna start with 1% thrust capacity." He held his arms out, his palms facing the ground. In 3, 2, 1. The arms and legs machinery activated, lifting him off the ground, hovering just a few meters above the pavement. "Nice and easy, Naruto, nice and easy." He tried to keep his balance as the dummy bot followed his movement. He hovered in a circle before he landed, balancing himself. Standing straight, Naruto looked at the bot holding the extinguisher. "Also, don't follow me around with it either," he said, "I feel like I'm gonna catch on fire spontaneously. Will you please stand down until I need you?" The bot looked down in disappointment. Naruto faced the windows once more. "Alright. Let's kick it up to 2.5. He shouted. 3, 2, 1. The arms and boots activated again, firing up as he hovered above the ground, a little higher than the last test, moving into a wider circle. He kept hovering, moving farther away from the pad as he did. "This is where I do not need to be," the blonde muttered and tried to maneuver himself out of the dozens of cars he had lined up in his garage. He then hovered over his desk, papers kicking up by accident while he did. Naruto sighed in relief when he saw himself out of the desk's way. He turned around and was met face to face with a wall. Shy. Acting quickly, the blonde pushed back before pointing his arms down, trying to keep him in place. He continued to hover himself in the position, slowly but surely reaching the pad again. Naruto slightly wobbled as he hovered over the center, stiffening his arms and legs rigidly as to control his flight. He spun around as he descended, stopping about a foot in the air. Landing quickly, Naruto flailed his arms around to get his balance. After a few steps back, he stood completely straight, then looked around, not minding the various papers scattered around the floor. He smirked in victory. "Yeah, I can fly. Is it ready, Kurama?" "Ready for you, sir." Naruto looked out the window of his garage, seeing the sunset over the ocean of Vale. Nodding, the blonde walked up to the pad. Alright, let's do this. Robotic arms moved towards the blonde's legs, screwing metal plates on the boots he made, covering it in chromatic steel. Clicks and clangs were heard as the machine locked in place. Soon, his entire body was covered in chromatic metal, the lights from above reflecting from the shiny steel as the arms screwed the parts in place. Naruto rolled his shoulders, feeling weight placed upon it as he did. Walking up to a table, he reached for a shaped faceplate, then grabbed it, turning it around. He placed it on his face. "Kurama, you there?" From the insides of his helmet, the AI's voice rang out. "At your service, sir." "Alright, engage heads-up display," he ordered. Window screens popped up in his mask, while a light blue crosshair appeared on his left side. "Check." Kurama confirmed. "Import all preferences to home interface." "Will do, sir." "You done?" "I have, indeed, been uploaded, sir," Kurama said. "We're online and ready." "Start the virtual walk-around," Naruto requested. Importing and calibrating virtual environment. Soon, Naruto saw the garage once more. "Nice. Can you check on the control surfaces?" "As you wish." Different panels around the metal suit Naruto wore began to move in an order. It began to adjust as a couple of panels on the back of his boot tilted and repositioned itself, the kneecaps adjusted, as did the circular flaps on the sides of his hip did the same. Motors on the blonde's neck secured themselves, while the compartment on the side of his forearm opened and closed. "Test complete. Preparing to power down and begin diagnostics," Kurama informed. Yeah, tell you what, Kurama. Do a weather and ATC check, listen in on Veil's ground control," Naruto ordered. "Sir, there are still terabytes of calculations needed before an actual flight can." "Kurama," Naruto stopped the AI. "Sometimes you gotta run before you can walk," Naruto stated before positioning himself. "Ready?" "Sir." 3. "Sir, I need you to reconsider." 2. "Sir, please." 1. Immediately, the thrusters on his boots and arms activated, slightly pushing Naruto off the ground. He leaned forward, the suit moving forward as he did, before slowly pushing himself off the ground and towards the garage door. Naruto tilted his body as the suit flew to the exit of the garage. "Let's do this." And out he flew. Naruto whooped as he flew in the night air, not even feeling the cold breeze that Veil's night had, his blood pumping in excitement. The blonde spun in the air as his suit adjusted itself, the panels tilting as he did. The suit helped stabilize him, keeping him flying straight. The blonde flew up to Veil's night skies, looking below. The teen's eyes widened at the view from above, where the buildings of the kingdom were merely specks of light from up where he was. He took a few breaths as a level on display locked on, marking the horizon. Naruto exhaled before tilting his body to the side, flying towards Veil with his arms out. "Handles like a dream," the blonde noted. Bringing his arms to the side, he accelerated. The blonde flew past Veil's docks, tilting his body to avoid the crane that was transporting a crate full of dust. He looked down below as workers did their job while civilians occasionally walked past the pier. Accelerating further, Naruto went past the docks, flying towards the ocean. He flew towards a small island off the coast of Veil, where he knew some people lived in. Hatch, he believed the island was called. Naruto flew in the island, seeing people walking back to their homes. He looked around the island. Before an excited squeal managed to hit his ears, seeing that he was fairly close to the ground. The blonde looked at the side, where the sound was from. He saw a girl, teenager, maybe a few years younger than him, dressed in red and black, along with a bombshell of a blonde and brown, that was probably the same age as him. The younger girl pointed at him in awe, her silver eyes lit up in excitement, whereas the blonde girl next to her just stared in wonder. He gave the two a two-finger salute before flying off. After a bit of exploring, along with testing his new suit, Naruto shot straight to the sky once more. "Alright, let's push this thing to the limit," Naruto exclaimed. His designated path now up. "Kurama, what's the AT-72's reference?" "The altitude record for fixed-wing flight is 85,000 feet," Kurama answered. "Records are made to be broken. Come on," Naruto shouted, shooting towards the midnight sky with a whoop. Soon, the cracked moon of Remnant came to view, the blonde's excitement continuing to grow as he reached higher altitudes. He barely noticed the ice that began to form on his suit. "Sir, there is a potential fatal buildup of ice occurring," Kurama warned, display messages popping up on Naruto's interface. But Naruto persisted. "Keep going." He strained as he accelerated further. Higher. He was almost there. Almost. Before the thrusters froze dead. And he stopped. His suit shut down. The only light source he had was his reactor and the moon above. He fell. And fell. The specks of Veil's city lights began to view from the slits of his suit's mask. In the distance, the top of Beacon Academy came to view. Ice shards fell off. "The ice is gone." "Kurama. deploy flaps. Naruto immediately commanded. Kurama. The blonde called out again, his fast descent continuing. He moved his frozen arm and tried to shatter the ice collected at the downside of his suit. Come on. Naruto insisted, cracks forming as he repeatedly struck the ice. Gotta break the ice. His hands soon found their way to the circular flaps attached to his hips. He twisted it. The flaps deployed as power came back to his suit. Naruto quickly activated his thrusters, narrowly missing the ground as he flew off Beacon Academy. As he zoomed back into the sky, Naruto roared in excitement, laughing as he did, making his way back to his mansion. He shortly appeared in his home, slowing himself down as he hovered above the roof. Fill power. The suit shut down. And the blonde fell through the roof, going down on the piano, through the floor, before finally crashing on one of his cars. Debris and dust covered his suit as Naruto laid on the wrecked roof of his car, well, one of them anyways. Kurama, you there? Always for you, sir. Let me out of this thing and fetch an ice pack while you're at it. We really need to work on his landings. And just what were you thinking kidnapping a man who could very well bring the might to the Atlesian army down to us? Adam Taurus bit back a growl as he bent down on one knee, wilt and blush strapped to his side and the ever-white mask he wore covering his face. The chamber, lighted with candlelights, was silent save for the occasional breeze or cough from one of the guards stationed inside. The light was strong enough for the banner that held the white fang symbol to be seen from the throne it was set upon. Bracing himself for the next outburst, Adam looked up. Sienna Khan was beautiful, anyone could admit that. With that beauty also came power, with a hungry vigor to right the racism that had pushed back her kind long ago. Her ideals to fight that, however, were different than her predecessors, who sought equality through peacefully negotiating, speaking out the wrongs of what the humans had done to their kind. The fool. At least, in her mind, Gira was. While she did respect the previous leader of the White Fang, Sienna knew that trying to achieve peace with the humans would not end well. She knew that simple rallies and protests would not garner the results she wanted. So, she found another method to get equality that the faunus deserved. Through force. Don't get her wrong, she didn't war, no. Much as she wanted equality, she wanted respect. She wanted her kind to show that they were more than just animals, to show that they too can be good, if not better than their counterparts. But she also wanted her kind to be respected. Sienna would not want to wage war with the humans, but she would gladly encourage her fellow faunus to show force, if needed to be. However, Taurus seemed to think otherwise. The leader of the veiled branch of her organization was young and had seen tragedies, coupled with numerous acts of violence to their kind at a rather young age. She knew that those events had shaped the bull faunus into something unpleasant, a man who wanted the best for their kind. Well, that was admirable, yes, he did it in a different way. By committing terrorism. Of course, when she heard the news, she was infuriated with what the young man had done. Yes, she allowed violence, but only to an extent. To show that if push comes to shove, then her kind would gladly shove harder. But that didn't mean she allowed her organization to go a series of acts that labeled the White Fang into a terrorist group. Kidnapping a boy who had close connections within the Atlas military was the last straw for her. She glared murderously at Taurus, her face looked calm, but it didn't fool anyone. The bull fauna spoke. High leader, you must understand my reasons. We need to show that our kind should not be trifled with, showing them we have power. By abducting a young but powerful boy who could destroy our organization. Sienna refuted calmly, but her eyes told a different story to those who looked at her. Adam swallowed in nervousness. High leader. Enough. Sienna snarled, her calm demeanor gone, her temper finally reaching its breaking point. You tread on dangerous waters, Adam Taurus. She hissed, I ignored your frivolous acts in Vale, I forgave your various stunts that brought shame to the White Fang, but this has been the last straw for me. Her golden eyes narrowed at the bull faunus in anger. Consider this a warning, if you so much as try something as ludicrous as that. She trailed off her threat. It will be considered treason. Between the slits of his mask, Adam glowered silently, but nodded nonetheless. Sienna gave a satisfied nod. Return to your post. The horned faunus stood up and left the chamber in haste, anger and humiliation wafting off him in waves. The chamber doors closed with a shut. Sienna watched him go, her temper calming, before she fully relaxed on her throne. The large doors opened once more, a white fang guard walking towards her, before kneeling down as he approached. Speak. She ordered. High leader, the faunus started. A man wishes to speak with you. He informed. The tiger faunus rose an eyebrow. Is he a human? Yes, the faunus confirmed, but. No matter how much we refuse, he insists on meeting with you. Sienna rose her other eyebrow. A human, wanting to negotiate with her. Her interest was piqued. Curious. She muttered. What is his name? The guard looked nervous, his form fidgeting slightly. Well, he goes by a title, High Leader. An alibi. Strange. Sienna thought. A title, you say? She leaned forward slightly. What is it? His men call him the Mandarin. Naruto sighed as he sat on his chair, surrounded by his various computers, as an ice pack numbed the soreness on his shoulder, which slightly gave him a better feeling on his situation. He was happy with the creation of Mark II, don't get him wrong. It was just that he needed to modify it. Mainly the problem he had come across on his very first test flight of his suit. Kurama, make a note, Naruto requested, the silver helmet displayed on one of the screens, dotted with dots around it. Main transducer feels sluggish as hell on, +40 altitude, hull pressurization is problematic. I'm thinking icing is the problem. Naruto reported for his AI standing up, he threw rag on the table as Kurama responded. A very astute observation, sir. Kurama patronized. Perhaps if you intend to visit other planets, I suggest we improve the exosystems. Kurama advised as Naruto blew a steaming cup of ramen. The blonde mixed his ramen as he turned to the other monitors. Connect to the Cisco, have it reconfigure the shell. Naruto slurped the noodles loudly, use gold titanium alloy this time, from the Paladin 290 that General Ironwood loves to brag about, that should ensure a large integrity while maintaining a power-to-weight ratio, got it? The blonde asked. Yes, shall I render using proposed specifications? Grill me. Naruto smirked, sipping the broth of his half-empty bowl of ramen, his other hand reaching towards the remote and turning on the TV on the other end of his wall. Tonight's special charity event is being held in late honor for the return of Naruto Namikas. Said blonde stopped eating his ramen and narrowed his eyes at the current ongoing video that displayed on the TV screen. He set his bowl down. Kurama, did I get an invite for that? Naruto asked. I have no recording of such an invitation, sir. The teen picked up a template mask, scribbled with various math equations he had done the few hours before as he held it up his face, listening to the reporter. The reporter, a woman looking in her 20s, was fair-skinned and looked serious and calm, her light purple hair cut short to her neck. She turned to the cameras again. Shni, CEO of the Shni Dust Company himself, is sponsoring the charity event, which is a shock to all who are attending, seeing as the SDC and Namikas Industries have been rival companies for the past years. That was also a shocker to Naruto. So much so that he almost dropped his ramen from the table as he stood up. Thankfully, he managed to catch it in time. Back to the matter at hand. Shni, sponsoring my event. Naruto muttered to himself, his brows raised up in surprise. It is speculated that CEO wants to bury the hatchet of the ongoing rivalry between the two major companies in the kingdoms. Add with the recent rumors of Naruto Namikas dating the CEO's second daughter and heiress, Weiss, it all seems to add with the speculation. Naruto thought otherwise. He scoffed, as if. Like the prick would ever want to bury the hatchet, the blonde muttered. He knew just how much deep the rivalry his father and Weiss's dad had. Almost every time the two were in the same room with each other, they would always try to one-up the other in any way they could. Be it business partners, trading, deals, whatever it was, his dad and Jacques would never back down if it ever meant to gain an upper hand against the other. He vaguely remembered his mom, bless her soul, accurately called it a measuring contest. It really was. According to our sources, the young man, who we haven't seen days after his return, is reported to have a case of post-traumatic stress and is bedridden for the time being. The woman said, whatever the case may be, no expects an appearance from him anytime soon. This is Lisa Lavender, signing out. The TV shut down as Naruto clicked on the remote, chuckling as he did. We'll see about that. He smirked, finishing what was left of his ramen. He let out a content sigh as he set the bowl down. Taste never gets old. The render is complete. Kurama suddenly announced. Naruto looked over at one of the computer monitors, watching the suit turning into a shade of gold. He studied it before shaking his head. A little ostentatious, don't you think? What was I thinking? You're usually so discreet. Kurama quipped as Naruto turned around, his face in a thoughtful look. How about add some orange in there? The teen suggested. You do like your orange, sir. The blonde spun in his chair, taking a glimpse of an old-fashioned car, noting the yellow flames streaking down on the sides. An idea struck his head. Actually, throw a little hot rod red in there instead. Yes, that should help keep you a low profile. Kurama remarked as the monitors displayed the suit disappearing for a few moments before eventually reappearing with the red added in. Render is complete. Naruto glanced at the monitor once more, the hot rod red now the main color on the suit, covering the chest, shoulders, and most of the legs and boots. Now that looked badass. Yeah, he nodded approvingly, I like it fabricated. Naruto said, tossing the template mask down on the table. Paint it. Commencing automated assembly. Estimated completion time is 5 hours. Naruto glanced at a clock hung on the wall. He stood up. "Don't wait for me, honey," he said as he walked up the stairs to the main floor. "Time to crash a party." Weiss sighed as she roamed around the lavish halls that had many people, dressed appropriately for the occasion, filling the wide hall. She carefully maneuvered between the various people and often chatting and mingling with the guests, which included General Ironwood, who decided to attend. Along with him was her sister. Of course, her father was there, who himself had sponsored and hosted the event. She knew his real motivations. While the public thought it was some sort of cooperation between the SDC and the Doltz company, she knew otherwise. It was only for reputation. Her father's company had obviously been in the bad light for some time, with the poor work environments that the faunus her father hired. It was no surprise at how much backlash he had to face when the little tidbit was shared. But the faunus were supposed to be happy. They had jobs, a living for Aum's sake. They should be satisfied with what they have. 1. So, in order to get back into the media's good graces, her father had decided to host the event in the Dolt's name. She sighed again when she was done talking with another guest who, for the umpteenth time, had talked about politics and business. It was starting to wear her out a bit. But for appearance's sake, she had to at least act friendly. Just as she was about to move on, a loud sound that suspiciously sounded like a car engine revved from the outside, prompting several people to flock to the entrance. Curious, she went to check on the commotion. "What's this world gotta come to, for got to come crash his own party?" A very familiar voice shouted out. The voice Weiss knew. Of course he was going to come here. Weiss muttered. "I'd be surprised if he didn't," she heard her sister say from beside her. Everyone, sans her and Winter, roared and applauded, separating, revealing to be Naruto himself, now dressed in an expensive black suit and an orange tie on his neck. They rushed to the blonde side as he walked towards the hall, the guests making way for him as he stepped through. Naruto made his way to the bar, sitting down on one of the stools. "Bartender," he called out. "Get me something that'll really shake things up." The man nodded and rushed to the shelves of drinks displayed. As the blonde waited for his order, he felt a figure sit beside him. "I'm not surprised that you would show up late to your own party," Weiss told him dryly as she drank a bit of wine she ordered. Naruto grinned at her in return. "What can I say? Everyone knows that being fashionably late is my kind of thing," he replied coolly. "I mean, did you see how many people rushed to me?" "Yes." After making a loud ruckus outside. The schnee rolled her eyes. "Your drink, sir." The bartender appeared once more, placing a fancy-looking glass cup on the table. Naruto thanked him and sipped a bit of it. "This good." "What is this?" "Single malt scotch, sir." The blonde downed the liquor in one go and set the glass cup down. "Another?" Weiss gave him a dry look. "Must you?" the heiress asked. "Don't knock it till you try it," Naruto stated as the bartender handed him another malt scotch. The blonde sipped a bit of it before offering some to the girl. "Want some?" the blonde offered. Weiss shook her head, grabbing her own glass cup filled with white wine. "No thank you, I prefer something with more class." Naruto insisted. "Come on. Try it." The girl stared at him blankly before she sighed and set down her wine, gently grabbing Naruto's own. She gave it a sip, tasting the blended whiskey with her tongue. "Like it?" The girl set the cup down before grabbing her wine. "Not bad. But not my cup of tea." She waved him off as she sipped her own wine. "Sure it is, princess." Naruto teased her lightly, sipping his drink. "If it isn't the guest of the hour himself." Ironwood made himself known. "Indeed, it is." Another voice chimed in. Naruto turned and saw the all-too-familiar mustache of the head Schnee. Jacques Schnee sat beside Ironwood as he, too, ordered a drink of his own. "Gotta hand it to you, Jacques, you know how to get a guy." Naruto grinned at him. "Have to know, where's the missus?" he asked. "She preoccupied as of now." Jacques answered rather uncomfortably. Nodding at the older man's answer, Naruto switched his gaze at the older man, surprised at his appearance. "General, thought parties weren't your kind of thing." Naruto smirked. "When you have to negotiate with many individuals, you get used to it," James replied. "Well, you two, care for a toast?" Naruto asked the two older men, holding his malt scotch-filled cup with a smile. The general ordered his own whiskey. Ironwood raised his cup. "To Namikas Industries." "To Namikas Industries." Naruto grinned, also lifting his drink. "To Namikas Industries." Jacques raised his own cup. The team gulped his drink down, as did James, who downed his whiskey, while Jacques drank his brandy. The party was in full swing now when Naruto arrived, guests and various business partners flocking to him as he mingled with the crowd, interacting with them. As he talked and chatted with the guests, a particular figure dashed through the room, which caught his eye. Cerulean orbs glanced at amber eyes. Raven locks fell down, cascading to her shoulders, her red and gold dress that looked like fire itself danced across it, swayed from side to side as she walked across the halls of the charity event, gently moving out of people's way as she went about. Naruto smiled at her. The raven-haired woman smiled back, turning around as she went outside. The teen took a glance at the general and his fellow CEO, seeing the two of them busy with their own guests. He stood up and followed the woman. She stopped just at the balcony that overlooked Vale in all its glory, gazing at the kingdom with her small smile on her face. Sounds of footsteps hit her ears. She smirked, turning around, meeting her gaze towards Naruto once more. She moved with grace, approaching him with a sultry smirk. "Should I consider myself lucky that someone like me caught your attention?" Her voice was smooth, silky, and smoky at the same time. Naruto smirked back. She was playing that game, wasn't she? "Okay, let's play your game." "You should be," he replied. She laughed gently. "Aren't I special?" The raven-haired woman sauntered up to him as he grabbed her hand and kissed it. "Naruto Namikas, pleasure to meet you." The blonde smiled charmingly at her. "The pleasure is all mine." The woman gave him another smirk, Cinderfall. A beautiful name to fit a beautiful woman. Naruto flirted. "Aren't you a romantic?" The now-named Cinder stared into his eyes. "I tend to be." He leaned forward. She giggled and placed a hand on his chin, leaning him more. Closer. And closer. Before she pulled away. Cinder smirked as she walked away from Naruto. But just as she left the balcony she gave one last glance at the teen, her searing amber eyes piercing his own eyes. "Maybe next time, Namikas." With that, she left. It was mid-afternoon, and Naruto could be currently found at his garage workshop, lounging on his couch. On his left arm was a fully painted red titanium alloy gauntlet that Kurama had finished the hours before. The gauntlet was connected to several different wires that all reached back to his arc reactor, which glowed brightly from his chest, bright enough to look visible on his shirt. He tweaked with a mechanical piece, using a screwdriver as he tinkered and fixed some minor problems that had occurred on the freshly painted gauntlet with a long screwdriver in his hand. "Sir, something came up." Kurama made his presence known. "Another proposal to bring back the weapons division?" Naruto asked, an underlying tone of irritability hiding beneath. It seemed that while the board still locked him out, they continually asked him to open up the closed division, no matter how many times he refused. The pricks. "No sir," Kurama denied, much to Naruto's relief. "An intruder has breached one of Namikaze Industries' abandoned weapons division warehouse." "Run that by me again." Naruto calmly asked, his hand still holding the screwdriver as he clenched and unclenched his fist multiple times. Tripwires were alarmed, but it seems the intruder managed to disable the Elysian Knights that guards the area. Kurama informed. Biz kept his eyes on the screen that showed footage of a silhouette that dashed past the robots that Ironwood assigned to guard the warehouse. Another footage showed a hand ripping out an Elysian Knight by the chest, exposing wires and mechanical parts as it fell down, destroyed in an instant. As he clenched his fist one more time, the orb on his palm started glow. Naruto screwed the arm it again and felt it lock in place. The last footage was dark, too dark, the only thing visible was the visor and lights of the one knight that was stationed in the corner. Until a streak of red lightning flashed, strangely looking like a whip, attached to the knight. Before it could even react, the robot was ripped apart in half as the electrical whip flung back by force. Then the footage went black. "That was all that I managed to get before they disabled the rest of the security, along with the knights, sir." Naruto stood up, approaching the counter at the side, tossing the screwdriver on the stone surface. He turned around, staring at the unlit side of the workshop which held other mechanical machinery. Slowly, he raised his arm. And his gauntlet fired. His arm recoiled a bit, but he managed to keep it steady. It was bright, the energy, he meant, it was blue, which then turned into a mix of white as it made contact with the objects. Which, speaking of, were all scattered around on the floor, burned or obliterated. Even the light wasn't spared. The blonde looked at the damage he made before glancing back at his red gauntlet with a rose eyebrow. Turning towards the 3 window panels that decorated the side of his workshop, seeing his reflection on the surface. He took aim, his other arm holding his gauntlet. And fired. The first panel shattered easily. The teen aimed at the second panel. It went down as quickly as the first. Naruto twirled around and shot at the remaining panel, the middle glass that stood amongst its shattered brethren. It shattered like the first two. He fired all shots with little to no recoil. He looked at the shattered remains. "Kurama." "Yes sir." "We're taking Mark III for a test drive." Naruto stepped onto the pad and tapped it with his foot. Multiple layers suddenly disassembled, disconnecting to reveal another layer which held a mechanical red boots that had rods sticking down on every side. He fit his sole on the boots as the undersides connected to his calfy robotic arms while the boots started to fold out as the other parts were drilled in. 3 mechanical arms came down from the ceiling. 2 from the sides, each holding a disassembled red gauntlet whilst the middle held a mechanical spine for him to fit into. The blonde held his arms out as the arms from the sides fit the gauntlets into each of his hands. The robotic arms extending as it connected each individual part that belonged to his 2 appendages. The robotic arm in the middle adjusted the spine, drilling in a red plating to cover it. The mechanical chest plate now covered his torso, including his arc reactor, which another piece was being assembled to. His reactor glowed brightly as another red chest plate soon covered his body, fitting into it perfectly. Naruto brought his arms back to his sides as the mechanical arms finished its work on them. 2 more came down, holding 2 sets that mirrored each other. They quickly fitted it onto the sides of his face as the back of his head was then covered by the same red as his suit. Another arm came to view, this time from behind, holding a shaped face plate that was painted gold. The arm fit the plate on top of his head as it went back up into the ceiling. The face plate closed down almost instantly. The slits lit up in a light blue color. Let's kick this guy's ass. The sun set as the orange and vivid colors of the setting sun came to view across the sky were beautiful white clouds that were surrounding as the once blue sky was now covered in orange, purple, and black. Did he mention orange? He loved orange. But that didn't matter right now. The clouds, fluffy and white, were abruptly streaked by a red and gold blur, destroying its shape, which now went to the direction of where the blur shot to. Kurama, how long till we get to the warehouse? My estimation suggests we should be arriving in 10 minutes. Naruto tilted his body as he shot past through more clouds, his eyes scanning down. Let's cut that to 5. Add more power to the thrusters. As you wish, sir. He accelerated, his boots and arms pushing him forward faster than Mark II could ever achieve. Sir, we are approaching the warehouse, should we proceed cautiously? A monitor popped up in Naruto's visor, showing a thermoscan, revealing a single figure in the warehouse. No. I don't have much time, let's confront him right now. I don't think it is wise. Kurama. Above, or the front? Above. Give him a bit of surprise. Naruto hovered to the window of the warehouse, which was filled with crates upon crates of weapons, ranging from mildly dangerous to deadly. His weapons. His creations. And his responsibility. The blonde quickly caught a glimpse of the intruder's shadow. And there you are, Naruto thought. He shortly thrusted himself up to the air, his fist raised above his head. And shattered the window. He impacted the ground with a crash, spider cracks forming under him as he did, his metal fist keeping him steady. Slowly, he looked up to meet the intruder. The intruder was tall and slim, wearing armor that's color scheme was mainly red and black, his mask had skull-like design to it, but it wasn't any normal skull, no, it looked like a Grimm's. His shoulders and upper chest supported gray. While the side of his right shoulder held the symbol of the just my luck white fang. I suggest you be careful, sir. The intruder tilted his head as he stared at the kneeling red and gold metallic-looking figure who crashed down from the ceiling of the warehouse. And what are you supposed to be? He jeered, one of Jimmy's personal toys sent to take me out. The figure stood up, its blue slits for eyes staring back at him. Not much of a talker, huh? The intruder chuckled hoarsely, his voice raspy. He jerked his arms, and 2 whip-like weapons came out, glowing red, coursing with electricity. The hell is that? Naruto questioned silently. He didn't have time to answer when the intruder suddenly attacked. Naruto easily dodged the first whip, leaning to the side as it passed him. He could see every pulse of lightning dust that was powered into the weapon, the intruder's whip destroying one of the crates as it did. Immediately reacting, Naruto shot a blast towards the masked intruder, who dodged it expertly, his weapons clinking back onto his hands as he moved. But the teen was relentless, activating his thrusters, the blonde dashed towards the intruder, hovering a bit as he did. He dodged a whip strike from the masked man and sent a strike of his own, successfully connecting towards the intruder's stomach. The intruder growled and sent a kick of his own, but the armored man managed to catch it just as it was about to make contact. He gripped the leg hard before he twisted it painfully. Naruto raised his other arm up and prepared to fire another blast. Only for the whip-like weapon to latch onto his gauntlet, denting the metal as electric current streaked through the glowing whip and onto his armor. The teen gave a shout of pain when a force akin to small lightning shocked his arm, making him pulling it back by instinct. Behind his mask, the intruder grinned and freed his leg from the armored figure's arm. He raised his whip up over his head and brought it down, cracking it against his opponent's crimson helmet, making the armored teen stagger back. Quickly, the intruder lashed at him once more, his weapons cracking as he swiped it left and right, continuously hitting the teen. Naruto grunted as the man's assault continued, thinking quickly, the blonde prepared for the next attack. "I can do this all night, Tin Man." The intruder gleefully shouted as he brought his weapon over his head. Then brought it down with force. To the teen, it looked like slow motion, the energy cracking from the weapon as it was brought down upon him. He dashed to the left. "Activate the thrusters." Naruto accelerated and he charged head first, approaching his opponent in mere seconds as his boots rocketed him forward. He grabbed the intruder by the waist and added more power to his boots, sending them crashing through crates upon crates of weapons that all clattered to the ground. The armored teen paid no mind to it as he let go of the intruder and immediately raised his arm and aimed it to the man's masked face. "Beat this." He fired a blast, watching as the blue and white energy knocked the intruder away from him, sending him flying to the warehouse walls. He impacted the metal walls with force, breaking the ironclad surface with his back. Kneeling slightly, the intruder chuckled as he cracked his neck. "Want to play her off, huh?" An energy beam that struck his chest was the armored assailant's response. Naruto lowered his arm, its repulsor powered down. Silently, he watched the smoke that had enveloped the intruder. "I'm not done yet." He heard the raspy intruder's voice shout out. Red streaked across the room and latched onto his neck, wrapping around it as it did. Another streak came by, this time wrapping across his torso. The teen cried out in shock as the weapons electrocuted him, all the while forcing him to move forward. The smoke soon cleared as the intruder held his arms out, pulling with all his might to get his opponent near him. However, Naruto acted, grabbing the whip that latched onto his neck, he wrapped it around his arm before grabbing the other extendable weapon and wrapped it on his other arm. With all his might, the blonde pulled with a cry. Then the intruder was sent flying. "Hum to daddy." Naruto reared his fist back. Then struck the man right in the face, hard. The satisfying crunch came from under the man's mask. It was music to the blonde's ears. Acting quickly, Naruto twisted around the dazed intruder. Now behind him the blonde drove his metal elbow towards the back of the man's head, sending the black and red clad intruder down to the ground. But he wasn't done, Naruto dove forward, facing the man head on. He activated his thruster on his left leg and kneed the man hard, the propulsion from his boot adding more kick to the attack, which sprung the intruder back up. He grabbed his shoulder and forced him to bend forward. The intruder blearily opened his eyes as he tried to stabilize himself. Only to meet face to face with his assailant's metal arm. The short beam shot towards his face in a millisecond, shooting him up with a powerful attack. Naruto spun to the man's back again and kicked the back of the intruder's leg, forcing the intruder to once more kneel in pain. The armored blonde quickly twirled again and he too kneeled in front of the man. He aimed at the intruder's face with both of his gauntlets ready. The flat orbs on his palms glowed brightly. And he fired. The blast was large and with it powerful. So powerful that it sent the intruder flying once more towards the walls. Naruto watched as his repulsors died down once more, staring at the prone figure outside the warehouse with caution. "Kurama, read vitals." "He's alive, sir, but at the moment, unconscious." Naruto sighed in relief as he relaxed a bit. As if on cue, the sound of military-grade bullheads buzzed into the area, the symbol of Atlas clearly seen from the top. "Looks like Ironwood caught wind of whatever happened here," Naruto muttered as he slowly backed into the shadows of the warehouse, his chest and eyes glowing from the dark as soldiers filed out of the bullheads. "Kurama, how much power do I have left?" "About 45%, sir, just enough to make it back to Vale with power to spare." "Good." Naruto nodded. Positioning himself, his thrusters once again activated, as did the ones in his palms as he slowly started to hover above the ground. Quickly, Naruto accelerated and shot upwards as more soldiers came into the area. Now in the skies, the blonde's boots accelerated further and further. Soon, a big boom sounded off as he rocketed through the clouds. "Let's skedaddle before somebody notices my absence in Vale." Sienna-Khan stared calmly at the man before her. Her golden eyes piercing into the lenses of the man before him. The eyes, covered by white lenses, stared back just as challengingly as the broad-shouldered man stood up from his kneeling position. Clad in a black and gold armor that left no skin revealing, a helmet that looked akin to the olden warriors of Mistral, along with the clawed boots and gauntlets, the man was intimidating just as he was respected among his men. "Greetings, High Leader Khan." The man spoke, his voice, altered by his helmet, giving it a deeper and darker tone. "I am the Mandarin." Sienna crossed her leg over the other. "I've been informed," she said, her golden eyes narrowing at him. "Speak." The black and gold-clad man chuckled, his voice sounding like a monster children would fear. "I would like to make an offer with you." Naruto tilted his body as he zoomed past the clouds that hung from the sky, careful to speed past areas that he knew Atlas military frequent. His red and gold armor, scratched and dented in some areas from his fight with the White Fang assailant. Which got him to think. Are the White Fangs still after me? He thought. What was he thinking? Of course they were still after him. Knowing how relentless the organization is, he doubted that they would stop their pursuit after his weapons just after one unsuccessful hostage situation. The White Fang were stubborn and passionate, which Naruto could respect. After all, not many people in Remnant could really be successful, huntsman or civilian, if they didn't have the drive to do their best. You either win or die trying. Unfortunately, the White Fang do have the passion for their cause, even before they were violent or terroristic. In the past, they simply wanted the Fronis to be treated as equals among the kingdoms, to be treated not as simple dust miners or any of the sort. Fast forward a few years and here we are now. Maybe they had enough, he thought. Enough of getting constantly berated or discriminated because of a few extra features here and there, enough of having to walk down the streets while the eyes were always looking your way. So, they fought back, and boy, did it stir something. Just not the good kind. And if that Adam guy was at the helm, leading the charge. It is not going to be pretty. He was losing focus. Naruto shook his head for a brief moment. Back to the matter at hand. Whoever was the assailant stealing his weapons was obviously there for a reason, White Fang associated or not. They wanted something from his company. And like hell is he going to give it? Namikas Industries was his mother and father's legacy, an inheritance they had passed on to him when their graves were lowered years ago. It was his father's pride, a company that would help Atlas in their time of need. And he wasn't going to tarnish it by letting a bunch of jerk-offs steal what his parents created. Briefly, Naruto wondered if Weiss was also going through the same motions he had regarding her own future company. Honestly, he had sympathy for her. He knew how much pressure it weighed, having to constantly live up to high expectation numerous people set up for her. Her father, Jacques, was partially to blame. The whiskered blonde never really liked the mustached prick ever since he met him when he was a toddler. Jacques was a perfectionist, simply put. He was a narcissist and tried to groom Winter in the same way. It failed, resulting for the eldest Schnee to leave home and work as an Atlesian military specialist, which made the prick mad. So, he tried a second time with Weiss, in which he partially succeeded. Of course, in the few years, Naruto noticed that the CEO of the Dust Company's influence on Weiss started to wane a few years ago. Which was good. He was glad that Weiss wasn't totally like her father. There are remnants of his attitude in her, sure, but at least she wasn't a total snob. But that couldn't be said the same to the youngest of the Schnee siblings. AKA, Whitley. Man did that little brat grate on his nerves. He just didn't understand how Jacques managed to create a mini-me in his son. Whitley Schnee is so much like his father to the point that it was beyond annoying, a self-centered arrogant pretentious asshole that only cared for their image and themselves. The vibration rung off from the side of his helmet as a photo popped up in his visor, revealing a photo of Weiss. Phone call from Miss Schnee, sir. Kurama informed. Answer it. His helmet gave a click in response, curious to hear why the girl was calling. Hello. Where now are you? Only to immediately regret it. Ah. Naruto gave a yelp and his thrusters deactivated, sending him down for only a brief moment as he clumsily tried to fix his rigid position in the air while his ears rung from the unexpected shriek the girl gave him. Can you tone down the decibels, princess? Naruto groaned as he tried to focus on the path ahead of him, his arm steadily going to the side of his body in an effort to resume his flying. Do not play smart with me, Naruto Namikas. He heard Weiss seethe from her scroll. He could practically hear her teeth grinding together already. The Schnee heiress's anger was cut short when she heard an unusual sound that came from the other end of the call. Curiously, she subsided her anger, for now, and leaned her face closely as the sound continued. What's that noise? Shit. Naruto panicked, quick, a lie. Oh. It's the car I'm driving with the top down. Naruto fibbed nervously. Weiss narrowed her eyes from the other end. Right, she drawled out, her suspicion raising. Back to the matter at hand, where are you? Her tone shifted from suspicion to anger like a snap of a finger. I haven't seen you since last night. And you haven't been answering my previous calls. Your other calls. Naruto weakly chuckled. You didn't know. How you are so erg. Weiss let out a frustrated growl unbefitting for someone of her stature. But, at the moment, she could hardly care about something like that, not when her anger was starting to overcome her. Look Weiss, I'll make it up to you, promise. Naruto panted a bit as he flew towards Vale. The adrenaline from before starting to slow down, the feeling of exhaustion slowly kicking in while he soared. Why do you sound like you're out of breath? It's nothing, just, jogging. Yeah, jogging in the canyon. There's no canyons in Vale, dolt. Weiss flatly told him. Naruto quickly caught on in his slip-up. Did I say canyon? He laughed nervously. I meant cliff. You know, the one near my house. The sigh was what the whiskered blonde heard. Weiss. Dolt. I am in your house. Listen, Weiss, I have to hang up real quick cause I'm entering a tunnel about right now. Wait, what? No, don't you hang up on me. Kurama, end call. Naruto Namikas, you are in so much true. The click was heard and that was the end of that. Ooh. When I get my hands on that dolt, Weiss growled as she continuously tapped on her scroll multiple times, attempting to contact the blonde. A few moments passed before it once again failed to call him. The girl let out a frustrated groan and flopped down on the main couch that sat next to the fireplace in the white mansion. The flames in the fireplace crinkling softly near the couch as she tried to calm down. Her hand holding the small package by her side. A rather loud metal clank sounded off at the basement, prompting Weiss to look over at the stairway that led to the garage in curiosity before she rolled her eyes and looked away. Honestly, with how much the doll tinkered with his little inventions down there, which often led to many noises in the day and night, she got used to it and wasn't fazed at all. Another metal clank was heard. Weiss's eyes shifted towards the stairway again before she averted it. The nagging feeling in her head had other ideas, the huntress in her kept on saying, what if it's an intruder? To which she scoffed at. It's probably nothing. She grumbled. But what if it was? The voice insisted. For a moment, her head turned towards the stairway. Standing up, Weiss approached the path to the garage with a suspicious look on her face as she went down the stairs. She softly grasped Mertnister's hilt firmly as the sound got louder. As she descended, her eyes quickly went down to the broken shards of glass in front of her, laying down on the floor. Carefully, she maneuvered out of the way before finally catching the intruder red-handed. She heard a familiar voice in the empty basement. Weiss gaped at the scene before her. Naruto stood in a small platform as various mechanical arms gripped and clawed at the red and gold armor he wore, though it looked like he was struggling as he tried to teach the mechanical arms and at the same time trying to not fall down. Okay, can you just ow? Naruto gave a shout of pain as the robotic arm clenched his metal armor a little too hard whilst another suddenly grabbed the armored leg as another one held onto the panel attached to the blonde's hand. It would be much more painless if you stopped moving, sir. Kurama advised as the robotic arms continued to take off the slightly battle-damaged suit. Dolt. Her voice broke the blonde's focus as it went entirely on her, while his face contorted to stunned silence at seeing the girl. The arms stopped for a bit, their claws slightly tilting, as if looking at the heiress. Swear to that it's not what it looks like. Naruto immediately said as the robotic arms proceeded to move to the legs and back of the red and golden armor, twisting their claws to get a better angle. Weiss shifted forward and leaned slightly as Naruto continued to hop back and forth at the small platform he was on, while the arms tried to pry the metal components off him. She took notice of the various scratches and dents that fitted the red and gold suit, mainly at the chest and neck, where deep and long gashes were seen, giving everyone a view of the metal mesh underneath the titanium armor. Where did you get those? Weiss questioned with a look. Oh, you know, a spar here, nothing too important, Naruto shouted in pain as one more arm tried to remove one leg off him, resulting him to almost crash sideways into the ground. Thankfully he managed to balance himself just in time. Geez, can it kill ya not to shove me off every 5 minutes? Naruto grumbled as the mechanical arm moved to grab the armored leg. The spar doesn't usually go to the point where almost half of your armor is dented. Weiss pointed out accusingly. Is this why you've disappeared for the past hours? Just to test this, she looked at the suit up and down. Whatever it is. The white-haired girl crossed her arms. I thought you were done making weapons. I am done in making weapons, but you need to understand that the White Fang. You fought the White Fang. Weiss shouted in shock at the revelation. Naruto raised a hand, tried to, at least, to calm her down as he explained. Yes, and before you go nuts, I need you to watch this. The monitor behind the heiress turned on, prompting Weiss to turn around as it turned on. Her eyes slowly widened when the footage of various Elysian Knights being attacked and destroyed in Namika's warehouse facility stunned her to silence. As she continued to watch, she silently noted the strange red whip that would flash on the screen, the weapon that possibly destroyed the Knights. Weiss looked at Naruto as the arms continued to disassemble his armor. Is that, she pointed at the torn pieces of the suit. Where you got those? From them? The girl asked with distaste laced in her tongue. Yes. The blonde confirmed. Now you see why I need to stop them. The heiress stayed silent. We need to inform Winter. Weiss said quietly and got ready to leave the garage, only for the whiskered blonde to stop her. Hold on just a minute, princess. Naruto ordered, irritating the girl. I'm gonna stop you right there, we are not telling Atlas about what we found or about my suit. He said, his tone taking on a serious note. Are you listening to yourself, dolt? Weiss glared at him from the other side of the room. We have a chance to get the authorities, the proper people to handle this kind of situations, and you're telling me not to. Do you realize how ludicrous that sounds? As much General Ironwood is good at his job, he's prone to making irrational decisions. Naruto gave a hiss when one of the armor plates death-etched as he spoke to the white-haired heiress. Finally, the chest plate of the armor came off and Naruto hopped out of the now disassembled suit with a sigh of relief. Weiss gave him an eye roll as she crossed her arms. Yes, like you know everything about the military. She fired back. Hey, I used to work for the military. So I know what I'm talking about here, princess. Naruto gave a smirk, much to the girl's annoyance. And I know how General Ironwood is, if he'll see a threat, he'll charge head-on. So for now, we? Yes, we. Naruto rolled his eyes. Are going to keep this a secret, for now at least. If we know what the White Fang will plan next. And if they're starting to recruit guys like him, the blonde pointed at the figure in the monitor. Then that means that the White Fang is most likely upping their game. Naruto sighed. Look. He started, I just want to right the mistakes that I've done for the years I had, building these weapons of destruction, while I reap the benefits for my own gain. He said. The teen walked towards the chair that sat in the middle of his monitors and plopped down. I want to make this right. Weiss scoffed. You're going to kill yourself trying. She told him. The girl couldn't help it, well deep down, she wanted to feel like this would work, yet her cynical side, her rational side told otherwise. You're right. I will kill myself doing a fool's goal, something only people naive to the world would dream of, a dream where logical people know that's impossible to reach. Naruto cracked a small smile. But here I am, doing the fool's errand. He looked down as his hands clenched oh so gently. Unless it's for a reason. The whiskered blonde tilted his head up and turned it to look at the stunned white-haired heiress. I'm not crazy Weiss, I just finally know what I have to do. Naruto softly muttered, loud enough for the girl to hear. And I know in my heart that it's right. His hand gently grasped his arc reactor. The girl stayed silent, honestly stunned at how much emotion the blonde had shown her, how passionate he actually was about stopping those ruffians, and how much he cared about the mistakes he's made. She always thought that Naruto Namikas would never show this side of him, but he did. And it surprised her at how serious he was about this. It made her think if this was really the boy from months ago. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Weiss chewed on her lower lip. She cleared her throat and spoke loud and clear. If you really think you know what you're doing, then I'll help you. I promise I won't tell this to Winter. She stated seriously. Naruto rose an eyebrow. How can I trust you? Weiss looked at the teen dead in the eye. A Shnee never goes back on their word. Jaune Arc was honestly the most nervous he's been in his entire life, his face twitching as he held the stack of papers that allowed him to enter one of Remnant's famous and prestigious academy. Which is also known as Beacon Academy. His heart leaped in joy when the documents he actually forged worked. He would have never thought in a million years that they would actually allow him in. As he walked happily along the streets of Vale, the sudden breeze picked up just at the right moment, which sent the papers he was holding right into the air, flying along with the breeze that lifted it in the first please. No. My papers. Immediately reaching for it, John instinctively jumped as to grab the flying papers, to which he succeeded. However, before he could whoop for joy or celebrate in victory, his shoelaces came off at the exact moment he landed on the pavement. And he slipped. Face first into a puddle. Luckily, he managed to just lift the papers just above for it to not get soaked. As he stood up, he dusted himself off and tried to go on his way, saving whatever dignity he had left, which was almost gone by this point of time. And as he was about to walk away. His luck screwed him once more when he was met face to steel with an iron lamp, meeting at it hard. He fell down, his body rigid, as his poor papers once more flew with the wind, while John watched helplessly as his ticket to Beacon flew away. Just as he was about to call it quits, a hand managed to grab it at the last second. A teen, probably the same age as him, held the papers with one hand as he brought down his sunglasses with the other, revealing cerulean blue eyes. While his whiskered cheeks twitched occasionally. Strangely, he noticed the middle of the guy's chest glowing. Was it his eyes, or is he seeing right? This yours? John stood up and thanked the stranger profusely. Thank you. Thank you. I would have been a goner if my papers would be lost, he rambled on, only for him to stop once he realized his own ramble. Sorry, I tend to get nervous around new people. He admitted sheepishly. Anyway, what's your name? Namikas Naruto. Jaune Arc. Short. Sweet. And rolls of the tongue. The blonde said confidently. Naruto gave him a deadpan stare. Does it really? The other blonde rubbed his neck. Well, my mom says it does, ladies will love it. So yeah, he trailed off. Anyways, thanks for the help, if there's anything I can do to repay you, just tell me. Anything, huh? Naruto let a smirk grow on his face. The whiskered blonde chuckled and slung an arm around John's neck. John, this is a start of a beautiful relationship. Naruto sighed and ran a hand through his hair for what felt like the umpteenth time. His eyes currently locked on the screen, which showed the fight he had with the unknown White Fang assailant through the recording he had on his helmet's visor. He frowned as he watched the fight intently, his eyes glued to the way the assailant moved and fought, his weapons complementing the fighting style the man had used. His frown dug deeper when he saw himself clumsily trying to fight back. Tapping a button, the monitors shut down, and its screen faded to black. His eyes shifted to the side, and he gazed at the suit of armor, held up by two chains on either side, while the lower part was set on a table, exposing wires and hidden machinery packed within the metal armor. Of course, that wasn't what drawn his eyes to it, no. It was the many scars and torn pieces that decorated the torso and arms of the suit that got his attention. Gashes were visible, which showed more wires and components naturally hidden beneath the red and gold exterior. Blackened spots dotted around the armor's torso and shoulders, as scratches, minor and huge, were seen throughout the many different spots. An unsure look replaced the blonde's face as he looked up at the battle-worn armor with slight irritation. His hand slowly went up to the main plating of the armor, feeling the once smooth exterior, now roughed up and cracked. Despite his victory over the White Fang assailant, there was one thing he was still sure of. He got his ass handed to him. Even before he created the armor, he was skilled. Every aspiring huntsman in training had to be in order to become a proper warrior to fight Grim. So, why was it that he nearly got beaten, or worse, killed? If he had trained his whole life for fighting. He could chalk it up to saying that he hadn't got control of the armor's capabilities yet because it still had its flaws. It was only in development over a few weeks ago. That, and his arc reactor was still powered by dust, which could only last for so long. But he didn't accept that reason. The White Fang assailant clearly had more battle experience than him, judging by how the guy easily took care of one of Atlas's newly developed knights. And managed to sneak into one of his company's storage facility without being detected. Which only led Naruto to several scenarios that came to his mind if things turned out differently. What if he wasn't fast enough to remove the whip that had gripped his neck? What if his suit accidentally malfunctioned during the fight? What if he hadn't caught wind of any of the footage beforehand and let the assailant escape? All those thoughts culminated into one thing, a single thought that entered his mind. He needed to be better. Faster. Stronger. He needed better tech, advanced, something way better than what he had now. Something that would blow away whatever his father or Ironwood could hope to build. He needed better armor. Kurama. Naruto suddenly barked, his hand pulling away from the Mark III. "Be rank, sir. Come on, we have a lot of work to," he said, grabbing the helmet from the armor and promptly yanked it off the suit. He held it in one hand, tilting it left to right as he examined the slightly damaged helmet with a crucial look on his face. "Already, sir?" Kurama questioned. "Didn't you just finish the Mark III?" "Don't care, Kurama." Naruto replied as he set the helmet down and approached his monitors. He glanced at it and briefly, a blue sheen of aura cloaked him. The monitors lit up in an instant as the sheen of aura disappeared. Naruto sat down on the swivel chair and created a new folder within the computer. Naming it Mark IV. "And what will the Mark IV have, sir?" The blonde hummed at his AI's question before he started to type again. "As of now, nothing yet, maybe down the line I'll think of something," he muttered as a model of the Mark III appeared at the display. "Hey, maybe this time I could become one with the armor," he joked as he started to size up and modify the newly made model. His eyes lit up in realization after a beat passed. Actually, Naruto grinned. "Maybe I'm not far off with that one. Planning to utilize your semblance, sir? Now that's an idea." Naruto's grin broadened at the concept and quickly typed a new note within the file. His semblance is a bit unique, an ability to mentally interface with cybernetic systems and machinery by force of will. Making him able to remotely communicate without the use of a scroll, but he carries one around anyways. It also allowed him to heal rather fast, faster than the rate in which huntresses and huntsmen heal. To put in short, he was a complete technopath. As cool as it sounded, it was useless if he would ever have to fight a Grim. If he could somehow use his semblance in accordance with his armor, then that would give him an advantage over the battlefield. But as of now, he needed to stick with the Mark III. The blonde still had a lot of testing and building, not to mention experimenting to do, before he could come close to building the Mark IV. With this in mind, Naruto stood up from the monitors and walked towards the Mark III as he donned a pair of goggles, gloves, before grabbing a welding torch. Time to get to work. Weiss shifted nervously as she paced around the hallway of the Schnee Manor with a tense look on her face, a contradiction to the normal cold and icy facade she usually was known for. The air in Atlas was cold, a bit colder than she remembered. Even after only staying in Vale for more than a week, she gladly preferred the warm breeze that the other kingdom had. She sighed and sat down on the many benches chiseled with fine art that lined up in some of the hallways of her family's luxurious manor. She took a deep breath and tried to soothe her nerves in preparation of what was about to happen. Her hands glided over to the case that laid down beside her. Gently opening it, the case lifted up, revealing her weapon, Murdernister in its glory, resting within the confines of the simple, yet professional containment. Weiss grabbed the handle with a steady hand and lifted her weapon out of its case. She flipped the revolving chamber situated just below the guard of her rapier, which held dust of all kinds inside. "Let's see," she softly started. Fire, ice, lightning, wind, and gravity. Weiss recalled the various dust she had contained within the cartridges of her weapon. It was the 5th or maybe 4th time she had done this, which was a way to calm her down. It wasn't much, but it was just enough for the test. "Damn. You look tense." A familiar voice called from the door opposite from the one near her. Weiss's head lifted from her examination of Murdernister and looked up at the newcomer. Naruto walked down the hallway in a normal pace as he approached her. He was dressed casually, how he got here past the guards, she didn't know. His jacket was mostly zipped, showing an orange shirt underneath, a faint dim glow emanating from the middle of his chest. "How did you get inside?" Weiss demanded, setting Murdernister back in its case as she stood up. "And why are you in Atlas?" "Klein let me in." The blonde answered in a nonchalant manner. "And Winter told me about this, blame her." Just as he said that, the door opened further, revealing a portly in a butler's suit entering. "Miss Schnee?" Klein started, approaching the two teens in a hurry. "Klein?" Weiss said in surprise. "What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be tending with the chefs in the kitchen?" The man waved her off. "They can wait for a moment, Miss Schnee," he said. "You however," he trailed off, examining her. The worried look appeared on his face. The lad's right. You're terribly tense." He observed with concern, his eyes shifting to a warm brown color as he rushed over to the girl while he balanced a tray of tea in one hand. "It's okay Klein, I'm fine," Weiss assured softly. "Just a bit nervous is all." "A bit?" Klein parroted, his eyes shifting to red. "Miss Schnee, you have been pacing around the manor since you came from Vale. I wouldn't be surprised if you had made a hole in the floor with how much you've been walking in circles," he exclaimed, his tone changing to a less than polite fashion. "Guy's right, you know," Naruto agreed. "You need to chill, princess." Rather than countering the teen, Weiss sighed and sat down once more. Surprising the whiskered blonde, having expected the girl to counter him. "I know it's just," Weiss started. "It's a lot of pressure, I get it," Naruto interrupted her. "Who wouldn't be at least nervous around a giant hunking suit of armor with an equally hunking sword?" he said. "The lad speaks truth, Miss Schnee," Klein said, his personality shifting back to the original as he straightened his posture. "Well, the Armagigas is a rather old piece of technology which has seen better days. It can still put up a fight for even full-fledged hunters. But it's not going to help you if you keep walking around the room like some kind of broken wind-up toy," Naruto chimed in. "I see." Weiss inhaled slowly, then exhaled as her stance relaxed ever so slightly, much to the relief of her butler. "Thank you the both of you." "Don't mention it." Naruto grinned slightly, planting his hands on the back of his head. "It's always a pleasure to help you in any way, Miss Schnee." Klein bowed before standing up. "Now, I think I may have overstayed my welcome. If you wish for more tea, Miss Weiss, then you know where I am." The butler turned around and left the room, closing the door behind him as he did. "Isn't he a bundle of joy?" Naruto smirked after a moment of silence. "Still." The blonde paused. "If you really are going through with this, then make sure you don't back out at the last moment. Please." Weiss scoffed, her attitude reverting to normal. "A Schnee will always accomplish their goals, no matter how hard the task will be. Give you 70% chance of winning this." "How supportive of you." Weiss responded sarcastically, rolling her eyes as she did, to which Naruto grinned back in return as he sat down beside her. "Lighten up. You'll probably come out on top," he reassured. "Probably." The door near them opened and a butler poked his head out. "Miss Schnee," he called, gaining Weiss's attention. "It's time." Weiss breathed deeply before she stood up, hefting her case with her as she did. "I understand. I'll be there in a moment." As she approached the door, she turned towards Naruto, who looked at her before offering a genuine smile that silently said, "Good luck." To which Weiss gave a tiny smile of her own before she composed herself and entered the next room. It was time to prove herself. A few weeks flew by, and within that time, Naruto had increasingly continued to work on his new armor, which mostly consisted of him planning out the model, armor pieces, and what to add to the armor to make it better than the previous versions. Suffice to say, he had a steady progress on that part. Right now, however, he found himself flying in through the Kingdom of Vale with a newly fixed and painted Mark III, its previous worn look now replaced with a new red and gold paint, looking as it was the first time he wore it. The blonde zoomed past the clouds in speeds as he enjoyed the scenery below him while he flew. Where he was heading to? Well. "You're approaching Beacon very soon, sir." Kurama informed the blonde as the visor zoomed in on the incoming island he was heading towards too. The whiskered teen spun and twirled while he flew and accelerated as he neared the academy in haste. Eventually, Naruto shot past the intended area he was supposed to land in, which was the courtyard, and went through the main building before he stopped himself abruptly, steadily levitating in the middle of the sky. Emerald Forest, Naruto said, looking down below him. A large canopy of trees, lush with bushes and greenery and grim, filled the area, while mountains surrounded the forest at its sides, a ruin of buildings off to the north of the forest. On the other side, which stood the school, were small circular pads that were stationed on the cliffs that led to the forest. Naruto zoomed in as he flew forward, albeit in a slower pace, as his visor spotted two figures on the cliff. Professor Ozpin and Goodwitch is there, so where are all the students? Naruto pondered briefly as he started at the two figures seemingly unaware of his presence. Before the blonde could question further, a sudden screech came from his side, along with the flapping of wings. Naruto turned his head to see the oncoming creature. Shy. Only for the Nevermore to knock him down to the forest below. Below, Glinda rose an eyebrow and looked up to the sky, briefly ignoring the ongoing fight between the hopeful huntsmen and huntresses as a slight sound flew by them, going down. Ozpin, did you hear something? Her fellow professor calmly sipped his coffee as he continued to watch the teens fight the Grim in the forest. I haven't had a faintest clue on what you're talking about, Glinda. The blonde professor conceded to that. I see, must have been my imagination then. Ah. You stupid bird. Naruto cursed repeatedly as the medium-sized Nevermore tried to get a hold of its prey trapped between its beaks. The blonde had other plans, however, and as the Grim tried to swallow it, Naruto struck and aimed his palms at the two red eyes of the creature. A moment later, and the Nevermore flew down towards the ground while it disintegrated, headless as it did. Naruto fell from the sky and into the forest. The armored blonde quickly gained control of his suit once more and balanced himself as he flew towards a random direction, thick branches hitting his face plate every now and then while he tried to steady his armor. The break of light penetrated through the thick leaves, indicating a break to the other side of the forest. Naruto accelerated further and blasted through the trees as he did, branches and twigs breaking upon impact with his armor. Almost there. He muttered, twirling to avoid a rather large tree that he almost crashed against. The blonde gave out a yell as he emerged from the canopy of trees, where the scenery changed. Instead of trees surrounding every area, a land filled with ruined buildings, temples, and bridges greeted him at the other side. A large shadow loomed over him before it passed him shortly. A large shriek followed as the humongous Nevermore perched on the tower ahead of him. A giant Nevermore? Naruto shouted in shock. How did this get past Ozpin? Sir, I've detected 8 individuals in proximity of you. Kurama informed. Growling, the blonde zoomed forward, while 8 figures below him also went forward, catching up to the Grim. Naruto stopped a bit and watched as the 8 figures took cover on the many pillars scattered around the land. Another roar was heard, and an equally big Deathstalker burst from the side, looking angry and hostile, just like any other Grim. Oh boy, Naruto cursed. With that, he flew forward. Lake Belladonna could honestly say that this situation was heading from bad to disaster quickly. She slashed at the Deathstalker in speeds, distracting it whilst Nikos and one other boy she didn't know, Ren, she remembered the orange-haired girl calling, tried to break the Grim's armor. It wasn't working. Despite their hardest to break the incredibly durable armor plating the Grim had, their bullets and blades were proved to be useless when it looked like it barely even scratched the Deathstalker. The Grim roared in anger and took a swipe at the teens, managing to hit Blake who was in midair, sending her crashing to the ground. She got up moments later and dodged the Grim's tail when it tried to attack her again. The crash was heard from behind, but Blake paid no mind to it, only to stare in surprise when the orange-haired girl Nora was sent flying to the Deathstalker with a grin on her face. The girl raised her arms up, hefting the hammer, and prepared to clobber the Grim. Smash. With a roar, Nora brought the hammer down. The Grim cried in pain and prepared to retaliate, only for it to be struck by a grenade launcher, sending both Nora and the Deathstalker away from each other. The boom was heard. Before a crash impacted the bridge, creating a small crater which nearly destroyed part of the already ruined construction. Red and gold was what the 5 teens saw. The figure stood up from the rubble as dust spread out. The first thing they noticed was how mechanical and robotic the newcomer looked like, judging by how the flaps from their back seemed to open at random, revealing the interior underneath the armor. Before anyone could react, the armored figure quickly took a stance and brought their arms out, aiming towards the dazed Deathstalker, before a beam of energy rushed out of the armored figure's palm, hitting the Grim harshly while it screeched in pain. Quick to retaliate, the Grim moved forward and thrusted its sting at the figure, only for the figure to catch it mid-thrust. The Deathstalker roared in anger and tried to push forward and succeeded, shoving the figure away and onto Blake, sending them both down. Blake gave a shout when she was accidentally thrown off the bridge. She grabbed Gamble's shroud and threw it at one of the ruined structure, her weapon hitting it, embedding itself into the old stone as she used her ribbon to swing away. The figure from before appeared once more, fire coming out of their hands and boots, floating in the sky as she used her semblance to quickly attack the Nevermore that swooped down. She was successful, having done a few good hits on the Grimm's head before landing on the tower, along with her partner, Yang, and her sister's partner, Weiss. RWBY was at her left, trying to shoot the Grimm down. "It's tougher than it looks," Blake shouted, briefly glancing at Nevermore that flew in the air, the newcomer nowhere in sight. Yang grinned and jerked her gauntlets, extending it. "Then let's hit it with everything we got." The four girls watched as Nevermore shrieked and flapped its wings, approaching them with its beak open. They went into a stance and fired everything they had. Yet, the Nevermore was relentless and continued to charge. Just as the Grimm neared, a flash of red and gold appeared from below, and the Nevermore shrieked in pain as it flew to the side, the armored figure floating near them, the blue slits, Blake assumed it where the figure behind the armor could see, looking down of the ravine where the Nevermore disappeared. Beside her, RWBY squealed in excitement. "Yang, look." She pointed. "It's the guy we saw before." Weiss looked at RWBY in shock. "You saw him?" She questioned, to which RWBY nodded with enthusiasm. "Wait a sec." Yang stopped. "Wasn't he, like, silver or white before?" Another shriek interrupted their talk and the Nevermore flew back up at the other side and charged headfirst to the tower, destroying it with its eyes. As the debris fell, the four girls jumped from one block to another, utilizing their semblances to gain height in order to land on one more platform. While they did this, the newcomer flew and circled around the Grimm, firing it with the energy blasts that came from his palms. The Nevermore tilted its body and opened its beak quickly before chomping down on the armored teen with strength. Before it could swallow him, however, the teen resisted and forcefully opened its beak in an effort to escape. Likewise, the Nevermore tried to close it, only for it to cry in agony when a sudden energy blast ripped into its mouth. The armored figure activated his boots and jettisoned out of the beak. Acting immediately, he flew down in the ravine as the girls from before continued to fire at the Grimm. Full speed ahead, Kurama. His boots and arms thrusters kicked into overdrive as he sped towards the distracted Nevermore in seconds as he clenched his fist and swung high, hitting it right on the underside of its beak. The Grimm's head flew back and flapped its wings randomly, dazed and angered as it tried to balance itself once more. But the armored teen was not done, flying up towards the tip of the Grimm's head, he pointed both of his arms towards the Nevermore's head. "Here's the big one." An energy blast, far larger than any of the teens saw, hit the Grimm harshly, while the Nevermore shrieked in agony, flapping down towards the darkness of the ravine. Shortly after, the four girls grouped back up with the other four teens who defeated the Deathstalker back at the land where the ruins connected. "Did you see the guy, Yang? Did ya? RWBY bounced excitedly as she walked with her sister towards the others with a skip in her step. Yang chuckled. "I think all of us saw him, Rubes. The question is, who is he?" Blake chimed in. Weiss stayed silent. "I'm just glad he saved us," John said, clearly exhausted with today's events. A shriek was heard from below. All of them froze. "And no way," John stuttered. "After everything we thrown at it?" Purah questioned shakily. Their fears came to realize. The Nevermore swooped up, looking worse for wear, its wings worn, while missing a chunk of its right wing. Its black feathers clumping around it as it fell down from the creature's body. A small dent on the top of its head where their armored ally brought its fist down on the Grimm. The boom was heard from above the group of teens, followed by a familiar cackle of fire. The armored newcomer came crashing down once more, just a few feet ahead of them, kneeling on the now cracked and dented ground he impacted on. He slowly stood up, briefly looking at the 8 teens, before turning around, walking towards the downed Nevermore. Blake stared at their would-be savior with a feeling of familiarity, as if she had met whoever was inside that armor already. But she squashed that feeling, she hadn't even saw someone with that kind of armor, let alone the way they fought. She pondered at this as her partner was gaping beside her, almost as all the other teens with her, but strangely not the Schnee who, assuming from the way Blake saw her act, would be demanding who their suited ally was. Could it be Namikas? Blake theorized, it could explain their armored savior's proficiency in weapons, judging by the way he fought. It could also explain the color scheme of the armor. From what she had read on Namikas, he was flashy and loved it. So what more than use 2 colors that stand out? Add to the fact he was the only one she knew who could make a suit of armor that fast. Nodding to herself, Blake gathered up her evidence and stored it for later, taking note of Namikas's name and the suspects of who could be the man in the mask. The cry was heard from the youngest of the group, Yang's little sister RWBY Rose. "Don't. You'll get killed." She heard RWBY shout in worry, preparing to grab her side, only for Yang to stop her. The figure didn't answer, seemingly ignoring the group of people behind his as he stated to raise his arm up. A click was heard and a panel on the gauntlet slid open before an object that looked like a miniaturized missile held by a small hook rose up from the gauntlet. The 8 teens watched as it fired forward, penetrating into the Nevermore's already wounded body, the creature giving a small shriek of agony at the unwanted pain. The armored figure turned around and walked away, never minding the dying creature's loud shrieks and screams. A beat passed, then a second. Before boom fired off from behind. The Nevermore's last sound was a scream of pain that was mixed with agony and helplessness as its body disintegrated within the blast, burning its feathers and knocking it back to the partially collapsed bridge, finishing the job and destroying the structure. Falling down into the ravine below while chunks of mossy stone and pillars followed it, never to be seen again. Always the show-off. Weiss rolled her eyes as the other teens looked at the scene in shock while their savior walked towards them in a slow pace. Her partner, RWBY, had a look of excitement in her face as the armored figure walked closer. Yang still had her mouth open after witnessing just what happened before her eyes. Blake was silent, her eyes narrowed as she stared at their suited savior with suspicion written on her face. Jaune, like Yang, also had his mouth agape in amazement, his partner, Purrit, grateful for the much-needed assistance that the metallic figure gave them, while Ren had wide eyes, silent like Blake through the entire fight. Whereas Nora was bouncing in her place in glee. Soon, their red and gold ally stopped before them, the teens, waiting for their savior to speak with bated breaths. What? No thank you. The silence was deafening as the group of teens stared at the red and gold figure in front of them. What? No thank you? He asked, his voice altered inside the helmet. A second of silence passed before RWBY outright squealed in excitement, rushing towards their armored savior in a flurry of rose petals despite her sister's protests. She surrounded the armor-clad teen, startling him a bit as the silver-eyed girl checked out various different parts of their savior. Inside his helmet, Naruto blinked in surprise at how fast the girl ran to him. What in the? Just as he could say anything else, the short girl appeared in front of him with an excited look on her face which mirrored the eyes, rose petals surrounding her, which the blonde took notice of, but didn't pay it no mind. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. RWBY squealed once more, her words too fast for anyone to understand. She took a quick second to calm herself, inhaling and exhaling quickly. Before kneeling at him in a blur, her hands held together as her eyes shone brightly. Please. You have to let me look at your armor. RWBY begged. The whiskered blonde didn't know how to respond to that. Just a few minutes. Maybe 5. No. 10. RWBY was about to ask again, only to feel a hand grasp the hood of her cloak and before she knew it, she was being dragged back to the others by Weiss. No. Let me go. The youngest of the group protested loudly, struggling to free from the white-haired girl's surprising strength. I have to know how it's built, please. Weiss clamped a hand over her eyes as she sighed tiredly, ignoring her partner's flailing. You are embarrassing us. She told her. Besides, I don't think he'd even let you check it. Lies. Ashni rolled her eyes and continued to drag the red-haired girl back to the group of teens, Yang thankfully grabbing hold of RWBY once the two reached them. Metal footsteps hit the other teen's ears as the armored teen approached them. I'm really sorry for my little sister's attitude. Yang apologized. She's just a bit of a dork for weapons. Hey. Don't worry about it. He waved her off. Nevertheless. Purrit chimed in, stepping forward. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you. She smiled at him. All in a day's work. Naruto found his lips broadening to a smile behind his helmet. Please don't inflate his ego. Weiss told the Mistral champion dryly. Weiss. Don't be mean. RWBY exclaimed, breaking away from Yang's grip to her partner's side. He saved us. She's right, you know. Blake let herself known, mildly glaring at the Shni. Can't you at least thank him before insulting him? The faunus knew that she may have come off a tad rude, but she just had enough with the white-haired girl's attitude since meeting her. I agree. Naruto grinned. The heiress rolled her eyes before she walked towards the masked teen with an irritated look on her face. She placed her hands on her hips and glared at him. Stop acting like a dolt and open that mask of yours, Naruto. There was a moment of silence before a small tch came from the red and gold armor-wearing teen, a sound went off and the gold faceplate slid up, revealing a pair of cerulean blue eyes, whisker marks, and blonde hair that poked from the top and sides of the helmet. Ruin the fun, why don't you, princess? Naruto Namikas grumbled, his face now for all of Remnant to see. Yang squinted her eyes before widening them a moment later, a finger pointed at her fellow blonde. You're that guy from the news. Nora narrowed her own eyes, humming as the words Yang said repeated in her mind. I feel like I've seen him before, she muttered and then turned to her partner. Ren. Help me remember. She shouted, shaking the poor boy in an effort to get a response. Naruto. Jaune said in surprise, staring at the teen that helped him with his papers. Jaune. The whiskered blonde grinned back, how's it going? Charmed any ladies yet? He teased, thinking back on what the other blonde had said the first time they met. The arc chuckled nervously. Yeah, about that. Weiss glared at Jaune, who yelped before switching her gaze to Naruto. You know him? The former CEO shrugged. Yeah, we're friends. Tell him to keep away from me. Weiss said, recalling the time the boy tried to flirt with her, which only strengthened the current annoyance she had. Don't be like that, princess. Naruto half-heartedly scolded. Don't know what he did to you, but he's a good guy, honest. After all he did got some pointers in charming women by yours truly. The blonde regally placed a hand on his chest. Is that why his one-liners are cheesy? The Schnee retorted with a smirk on her face. The whiskered teen gasped dramatically at the comeback, gaining a hurt expression as he did. Your words wound me, princess. Naruto laughed before his eyes caught the last person of the group and it slowly died down as he stared at the girl he had met during his time in Vacuo. He grinned and walked up to her. Naruto Namikas, pleasure to meet you. He introduced himself, his eyes never leaving the girl's own. Lake Belladonna. The fauness returned the greeting, though hesitant as she did. She stared at the teen's eyes for a moment before looking away just as Naruto turned his back. Wait. Like, the billionaire CEO of Namikas Industries, Naruto Namikas? Yang asked. The very same. Her fellow blonde nodded. Alright. Now that this is all settled, how about getting out of here? The others couldn't help but agree. Well done, all of you. Osmond congratulated as the last of the would-be hopefuls of Beacon, sans RWBY and the others, filed inside the academy, eagerly waiting for the ceremony. A giant nevermore being defeated is quite a hard task for most, but also befelling an ancient Deathstalker is an accomplishment. The headmaster smiled. All of you have shown bravery, prowess, and teamwork. Once again, well done. Aw, shucks. RWBY said bashfully, playing with her cape while she looked down with a smile on her face, the expression mirrored by the other teens. No congratulations for me. I helped too, you know. Naruto made himself known, the thrusters on his arms and legs making a low hum as he hovered down to the ground, landing next to Weiss. Linda ignored the armored blonde and stepped forward, a frown adorning her face. However, while defeating two ancient Grimm is commendable, all of you still showed mistakes in handling the situation. She reasoned. All of you are lucky that Mr. Namikas was flying by, had he not. I'm not sure what the aftermath would have looked like if he had not arrived. Indeed. Osmond nodded before he turned towards the whiskered teen. I commend you as well, Mr. Namikas, for helping out my students. Naruto puffed his chest out, extenuating the glowing arc reactor shining brightly as he responded. It's all in a day's work, Professor. The blonde grinned, repeating what he said to Purr. Please, deflate your ego before it crushes us all. Weiss told him dryly. The red and gold armored teen merely kept on grinning. PSSH, you're just jealous over all this awesome. The girl rolled her eyes. Hardly. From the sides, Yang leaned towards her sister. I like this guy. She whispered to RWBY. Now that all of this has been cleared up, please wait ahead inside, you eight. Glinda adjusted her glasses. We will catch up shortly, Professor Osmond, and I will have a short discussion with Mr. Namikas. As the teens began to go into the academy, Nora skipping with glee, Ren in tow, whilst RWBY, Yang and Weiss followed in a more moderate pace, accompanied by both Jaune and Purr. Blake came closely behind, reading the little book she always seemed to have with her. Before she stepped inside the academy, the girl gave one last glance to Naruto and walked away. Now, Mr. Namikas, Osmond started, catching the whiskered blonde's attention. I believe we need to discuss about your decision to enter Beacon. I assume you have an answer? The professor asked. I do, Professor Osmond. The gold faceplate slid up and Naruto walked forward, edging closer to the older man. He crossed his arms. Think on your offer, as tempting as it is. I see. Osmond said after a beat. Is there any reason you'd like to share with me on why you would pass on my offer? Nothing personal really, Naruto shrugged. Just that, with the board of directors breathing down on my neck and calling me out that I have PTSD, even though it's a clear sign that I don't. He muttered. I can't exactly convince them, even I want to. The headmaster stayed silent after hearing the blonde's reason. I think that I can help with that, Mr. Namikas. Osmond offered with a slight smirk on his face. You do? I can try my best to persuade the council to enlist you in Beacon. Osmond said, why waste a talented young man such as you to do nothing while your company can handle itself without you? I'd like to think this is a way to show them that you're clearly capable of reigning control of your company, should the time ever come. After all, you do know that while your father was a businessman at heart, he still attended Beacon to train and hone his physical and mental state. I'm sure he would have wanted you to follow in his footsteps. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the mention of his father. Playing the family card on me, Professor. Clever. He smirked. Alright. The blonde decided. You thoroughly convinced me, I'll join your academy on one condition. Name it. I want a private workshop of my own here in Beacon, can't exactly go back to my house every time, just get a single component I need for my armor, you know. The blonde said, wastes time and resources if you ask me. Osborn looked thoughtful for a moment before he nodded firmly. We can have that arranged. There's plenty of room in the armory. By the time you have been settled, I will assure you that it will be finished and ready to use for your liking. I'll take your word for it. Brussels Thrush and Skylark. For acquiring the Black Bishop pieces, and so, you four shall be known as Team CRDL. Led by Carton Winchester. Osborn nodded to the four gathered before him as the four walked off the stage. The next set of students walked up to the stage after the newly named Team CRDL went back to their seats as the applause died down, murmurs replacing the previous noise while Osborn announced the new team. Jaune Arc, Nikos, Lai Ren, Nora Valkyrie and Naruto Namikas. The headmaster called, earning some gasps at the last name as the previous teens called stepped into the stage. A second passed before Naruto appeared, flying towards the stage in the last moment and landed beside Jaune, who gave a startled yell as the aforementioned teens' images displayed on the screen. The five of you retrieved the white rook pieces and also helped your fellow students in need. Osborn said, his eyes shifting to Naruto for a brief second. From this day forward, you will work together as Team JNNPR. Applauding from the freshmen and older students were heard throughout the auditorium. Lead by Jaune Arc. Huh? The sound escaped the new leader of the team. The blonde slowly placed a hand on his chest, pointing to himself. Led by. Osborn smiled at him. Congratulations, young man. A still stunned Jaune didn't see the friendly punch his partner gave him, which earned a few laughter from the students watching. A metallic hand was offered to the Arc, who gladly accepted it, giving a grateful groan to Naruto as he hoisted him up from the ground. Thanks. The aspiring knight said, rubbing his arm. Even with his aura, it still hurt. Don't mention it, leader. Naruto grinned at him. He was a bit irked that he wasn't chosen as the one to lead the group, but he decided not to voice his opinion this time, he wanted to give Jaune a chance. The five walked off the stage while Osborn continued the ceremony, calling in the next set of students. Lake Belladonna, Weiss, Yang Xiaolong, and Ruby Rose. For recovering the white knight pieces, henceforth, the four of you shall be known as Team RWBY. The silver-haired man announced. Lead by Osborn stalled as his eyes trailed to the shortest and youngest of the group, while Weiss waited anxiously. Ruby Rose. I'm so proud of you. Yang exclaimed while she gave a tight hug to her sister with glee, not noticing the discomfort on Ruby's face as she gripped tighter. Yang. Air. Naruto watched the exchange with a smile and continued to applaud with the other students as he sat with his new team. He chuckled as he made various notes on the girls' reactions, such as Weiss's shock and apparent annoyance, Blake's light indifference. Though he frowned at the Shnee's reaction. For the love of Aum, please don't do anything irrational, Weiss. As Osborn sipped his coffee with a slight smile on his face, he looked around the auditorium, feeling satisfied. This year is shaping to be an interesting year. He remarked casually, before sipping his coffee, eyeing the armored blonde chatting with his teammates. Very interesting. The chest piece and leg took some damage during your flight with the Nevermore, while the chassis underneath suffered some dents, but overall, there's nothing that serious enough to cripple the suit, sir. Kurama informed 3D model and scans of the Mark III displayed on the small screen of the scroll that was set on a nearby bench while Naruto shed his red and gold armor with a grunt. The blonde didn't have no choice but to remove each of his armor pieces manually in the locker room of the academy. The ceremony had ended a little while ago and the team couldn't get back to his garage in time, so he had to resort on removing his armor piece by piece. He was the only person in the room right now, having purposely waited for everyone to leave, he would have used his workshop, but it was still being prepared. He gave another grunt as he forcefully pulled the last piece of armor from his body, the rest of the Mark III scattered on the floor and benches nearby. At least the upgrade served their purpose. Naruto stretched, relishing in the feeling of freedom from the warm and tight armor. He needed to fix that in later models. Still. I don't think repulsors are enough. The whiskered teen said. Kurama, make a note, add a melee weapon in future suits. Naruto informed the AI. Noted and stored, should you ever need it. Kurama replied. In the meantime, sir, might I suggest to catch up with your teammates? It would prove fruitful in bonding with the people you would spend the next 4 years with. I make no promises. Naruto remarked as he stood up. Carefully grabbing the suit pieces one by one. For now, I'll need to store this in the workshop. He muttered before his eyes lit up. I almost forgot, make a note to store Raymond in the workshop. How could I forget? You can never stop obsessing over Raymond. It's just that good. The blonde smirked as he opened a door that led to his personal place. The room was fairly big enough to store about 2 or 3 cars at most, pillars placed on each side of the room. A few monitors stationed at the side were placed by the headmaster, coupled with a few chests and storage boxes for his armor or parts. On the corner of the room was a forge, complete with sets of tools commonly used that were displayed on the wall, an anvil in the middle in case he needed to use it. Aside from that, the room was empty, bare, all for him to use. Naruto approached a nearby storage chest and kicked it open, the box hissing slowly as it did. He proceeded to dump the armor on the chest, filling it up in a sea of red and gold, the metal clanging with each other while he closed the box. The buzz vibrated from his scroll, prompting the team to grab it. The text from Jaune appeared as he unlocked the device. "Where are you? Curfew's about to start." Naruto tapped his device for a moment. "On my way." "And send." The blonde pocketed his scroll and headed towards the door, not before closing the lights. As soon as the Namikas entered his team's new dorm, he already noticed one glaring problem in the room they were supposed to sleep in for the next 4 years. "There's only 4 beds," Naruto muttered as he closed the door behind him, catching the attention of Jaune, who was wearing a forsaken blue onesie that the team decided not to question. Hera fidgeted nervously as she sat on another bed, wearing only a black tank top and shorts acting as her sleeping wear. Nora bounced happily at her own bed, seemingly unaware of Naruto's presence, too caught up in her little world, while Ren was in the bathroom, most likely brushing his teeth. "Yeah, I noticed that too," Jaune said, rubbing the back of his head while he sat down on a bed he claimed. Naruto face-palmed. "No way in hell am I sleeping on the floor." Naruto immediately denied whatever his leader was about to suggest, causing Jaune to slump in disappointment. Just as Ren entered the dorm. "Ren. We need your help." Nora bolted to her longtime friend with excitement. "We only have 4 beds. But we have Naruto with us, so we need a plan." "I'm afraid that I don't have any idea." "Then that means you have to bunk with one of us." Purr concluded. "No offense, but I don't think I feel comfortable with sleeping next to another dude. And I barely know you or Nora," Naruto said, while Purr blushed at the notion of sleeping with a boy. "I think I'll try my chances at the workshop." The whiskered blonde mumbled, sounding almost comfortable with the idea, to which the invincible girl frowned at. "No, you are not." Eyes snapped to the red-haired girl, who stood up from her bed. "We are teammates, Naruto, and I think we can make enough space for you, even if it means you have to bunk with either of us," the girl said. "Oh?" Naruto grinned wolfishly. "Are you suggesting something, Purr?" he asked with a smirk. The girl turned red at the blonde's teasing, sputtering incoherently as she tried to reason. I mean. It's not alright that you should sleep on your own. That's all." The Mistal champion stumbled with her words. "It's alright, I can handle it," Naruto assured her after the girl calmed down. "It's just for one night, I'll contact Osban first thing tomorrow." "If you're sure," Jaune said. The whiskered teen nodded. "Kurama, contact a bullhead tomorrow, have them ship some of my supplies and tools to Beacon," Naruto ordered as he welded the helmet of the Mark III, making sure to fix any damages caused by his tango with the Nevermore. "Noted, sir." Good. It had been a few minutes since he left his team's dorm, having went straight to his workshop and immediately went to his armor pieces for additional checkup and fixing. He knew he was supposed to be sleeping right now, curfew had long been started, but the blonde didn't care. He was a workaholic, sue him. "Sir, I have taken the liberty of designing some parts of the Mark IV while you were gone, would you like to view it?" Kurama asked him, a monitor powering up as the AI spoke. "It's titled Mjolnir and the files I downloaded in this monitor." "Let me see." Naruto stopped and set the welding torch down, removing the mask to protect his face while he approached the monitor. Shortly, a 3D model appeared on screen, showing a very different design than the blonde had expected. The helmet popped up, vastly dissimilar to the Mark III design, this one being more fitted to look like one of Atlas's military creations. It was green, which looked to be its primary color, the visor was polarized orange that expanded to the sides, something which he could appreciate, while the armor itself looked bulky, leaving a few spaces in between the pieces of actual armor. All in all, Naruto could say that Kurama was thinking outside the box. Curiously, he grabbed the helmet model and examined it closely, noticing how the top seemed to go a bit forward, shadowing some parts of the visor itself. He stared at it. "Mjolnir, huh?" The blonde repeated what his creation called the armor. He put the 3D model down and shook his head and clicked away from the file, the model disappearing from view. "Nah, too much ironwood for my liking." He sat down on a chair provided by the academy, opened the Mark II's model, the armor appearing on the grid that lay beside the computer. Naruto walked towards it and created a copy of the model, below it the label of Mark IV, he started to fiddle with the various parts of the 3D model with a thoughtful look on his face. Seeming satisfied with what he had done, Naruto stepped back and admired the new look from Mark IV. Better. Sir, might I suggest resting for tonight? You have a big day tomorrow. Kurama reminded. He's right, you know. A new voice made itself known. Naruto, startled, snapped his head towards the door. Standing in the doorway, Blake stayed where she was, her arms loosely crossed over her chest, dressed in a black yukata. You look good. Naruto couldn't help but comment. Any chance why you're here and not in your dorm? I could also ask you the same question. Blake shot back. Don't have enough beds, that's why I'm bunking here for a bit. The Namikas answered. The girl stayed silent for a moment before she sighed and fixed her gaze on the blonde. We need to talk. If this is about the thing you did months ago, then rest assured, Blake. We have nothing to talk about. Naruto told her, surprising the girl. I forgive you. Blake stood there, mouth agape, staring at the blonde. Just like that? The teen shrugged. Yeah, just like that. He sighed and rubbed his eyes, exhaustion caught up with him. Look, I don't blame you for what happened to me. You were following orders, stupid orders at that, but that was it. Not to mention you helped me. He assured her, while Blake's eyes trailed down to the arc reactor dimly lit on his chest. If it weren't for you, then I would have been buried in the sand, or worse. Naruto said. I could have built weapons for the White Fang, and we both know nothing's going to be good if I did that. The whiskered teen stood up from his chair and approached the girl before he touched the black bow that sat on her head. And while we're at this, I'm going to say it right now, that bow of yours isn't really fooling anybody. Naruto joked, trying to lift the atmosphere. Blake looked at him, caught off guard, and glanced away. Are you going to tell them? That's your secret to reveal. Not mine. Naruto shook his head. He removed his hand from the bow and went back to the display of monitors on the room. You should head back, get some rest. Classes start at 9 in the morning. Blake looked down, switching her gaze from the blonde and onto the ground before she turned around. Good night, Naruto. Night, Blake. The click was heard and he didn't feel the cold breeze the outside of the workshop brought in. Her woke with a small yawn as the crack of sunlight's rays shone brightly through the red fabric of the dorm's window, dimming the yellow shade to a much more appropriate color. She rubbed her eyes in an effort to remove any drowsiness that would tempt her to lie back down. Glancing over the clock, the girl saw that it was only 6 in the morning, a rather early time to wake up, but nonetheless she was grateful so she could start her morning routines earlier than expected. As she stood up, the Redeed noticed that she was the only one awake. John was still dozing off in his Odyssey pajama, holding a stray pillow that was tucked into his arms. Nora had a giant smile on her face as she lightly snored. Purah lightly wondered what kind of dream the hyperactive girl was having. Pancakes, come to mommy. Never mind. Ren was also seemed to enjoy his sleep, evidenced by the small yet peaceful smile on his face as he dozed away. Purah thought it was because he had been around with Nora for so long that he appreciated every second of sleep he had. A small frown made its way to her face when she remembered the last member of Team JNNPR that was currently absent from their dorm room due to the lack of beds. Since she woke up first, the girl felt like it was her duty to check up on her teammate. Quietly as she could, the girl walked towards the bathroom without making any noise before closing the door behind her. She took a quick shower that refreshed her mind and prepared her for the day. A few minutes later, the girl came out of the bathroom, freshly showered and in a new set of clothes that were handed out by the academy. Purah fixed her hair and smoothened it as she approached the door that led to the hallway silently, opening it before closing it as gently as possible. A small click was heard from the door, signifying its closed state, giving the girl a small amount of satisfaction. The Mistral champion's walk to her wayward teammate's workshop was rather dull for the most part. She enjoyed the scenery and light that shone through Beacon's large windows that occupied most of the hallways, and greeting other students, old and new, that treated her like any other huntress in training, was a nice change of pace from the usual excitement that her fans back in Mistral have. Her heels tapped against the smooth floor of Beacon Academy, often making slight noises whenever it made contact with the floor. It wasn't easy to find, but the Redeed finally managed to find her destination in the school. She roamed around the halls aimlessly for a few minutes before giving up and asking an older student where the armory was located. As she entered the armory of the academy, Purah took notice that the large room looked identical to the locker room that was used by her fellow students 2 days ago. Though the armory had noticeably less lockers, instead replaced by tools and small forges that served many students in need of repairing or upgrading their weapons manually. She walked around the room, examining the mini forges in slight interest, taking note of it for the future later on. After a few minutes, her eye caught a door at the far back of the room that had the label of private use above the door. At first, Purah had doubts that this would be Naruto's workshop and prepared to leave. However, just as she was about to walk away, the girl noticed a symbol for Namikas Industries that displayed on the side of the door, slightly embarrassing her since she didn't notice it until just now. She grabbed the doorknob and twisted, surprised that it didn't have any sort of security that could have sent away any curious students, but the Redeed chalked it up to her teammate not having time to install it more than anything. When she entered, the girl noticed that it was dark within the confines of Naruto's workshop. Save for a medium-sized rectangular table sat in the middle, had a holographic display of what looked to be the armor Naruto wore the day he assisted their team and Team RWBY, though, on closer inspection, Pura noted that it was different from the armor she saw him in. She placed her hand on the walls and tried to feel for a switch. A few moments later, her fingers lightly bumped against something that stuck out of the smooth surface of the wall. Her hand trailed down and flicked the switch, enveloping the room with light. Relieved, the girl stepped back, only to feel her leg coming in contact with something cold and solid. The huntress in training gave out a small leap of surprise and balanced herself in order not to trip so she wouldn't potentially mess with what Naruto was working on. Pura crouched down and grabbed the object she felt, lifting it up to her eye level. It was a helmet. The one Naruto wore from the battle-damaged state it was in. That, and the red and gold paint it had, but she could see the paint start to wear down with the scratches that decorated the metal contraption. Her gaze tore away from the helmet and onto the holographic display in the middle of the room. Pura glanced at the helmet in hand before looking at the display, noticing some differences in the design. Now, the girl was anything but nosy. But her curiosity tempted her, and so she, with the helmet in hand, approached the display and compared them with each other. From what she could see, the display's helmet had a smoother surface than the one in hand. A little small triangle that was engraved in the holographic helmet was also another difference, as was the slits for the eyes. While the one in her hand were plain rectangles, the display in front of her head was almost the same, save for the little slit that came down on the end of the helmet's eyes. If Pura were to be honest, she was confused on why Naruto was already starting on a possible new armor already. From what she could see, the one he wore was still state-of-the-art and was probably a bit more advanced than the ones in Atlas, which was impressive to say the least. Add to the fact it could dish out serious damage to an Evermore, an ancient was also outstanding. However, she could understand. Huntsmen and huntresses these days need to adapt to the ever-dangerous Grimm that inhabited Remnant. And while her teammate's technology was nothing short of impressive, she could see why he was aiming to upgrade it. She also knew that Grimm weren't the only ones dangerous. Humans and Franus could also be, if not more dangerous than the beasts themselves. Criminals like Torchwick and the White Fang were examples of what their species could do. Pura silently set the helmet down on one of the chests in the workshop, reminded of what she originally was supposed to do, and approached her teammate. A few monitors shone a bright blue on one side of the room that lit up the desk her teammate was sitting at. Naruto's head was down, his arms resting on the desk, all the while acting as a makeshift pillow for his head as he let out light snores whilst he slept soundly. Scattered around his desk were various blueprints of armors, notes, and paperwork from his company that were most likely sent from Atlas. A coffee mug sat on the far side of the desk, accompanied by 3 empty bowls that had 2 chopsticks poking out of. Gently, Pura approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder, shaking him slightly. Naruto woke with a small snort, raising his head up in a matter of seconds as his eyes dropped up and down. He eventually returned to his sleeping position in a matter of moments. Pura giggled at the sight. "Go away." The blonde mumbled. "I'm afraid I cannot." The invincible girl smiled at him. "As tempting as it is to let you sleep, class is about to start anytime soon and I think you wouldn't want to miss the first lesson," she said. A bout of silence was the response before a groan came out of the whiskered blonde's mouth before he stretched and stood up, yawning slightly with a tired expression on his face. Redeed rose an eyebrow at the sight of eye bags that stood out from Naruto's skin. "Did you stay up all night?" "No, yes, maybe. I don't know." Naruto contemplated before shrugging, the exhaustion from yesterday still affecting him. The girl frowned at him. "It's unhealthy for you to keep on doing this," she stated. The teen sighed and straightened himself, giving out a large grin that could rival Nora's. "I'm fine. See?" he assured her, spreading his arms out to signify that he was fully alert. Until he wobbled slightly before promptly collapsing on his chair. His teammate immediately came to his aid. "Are you alright?" she asked in concern. Naruto groaned. "I'm fine, just a little tired, is all." He gave her a weak grin. Pura sighed in relief, though her eyes still showed concern to her teammate. "Can you stand up?" she asked, to which Naruto nodded and did what she asked, careful not to repeat the same mistake he did. The blonde stretched and shook his head rapidly, trying to shake off any drowsiness from last night so he could think straight. "Are you sure you can attend class? I can ask Headmaster Osborne to let you rest." He waved her off dismissively. Much as I appreciate your concern, I'm functional, I've felt worse. Naruto reassured his teammate. The huntress in training frowned once more, her lips pursing as she contemplated, before she sighed. If you're sure, the Redeed said, uncertainty in her tone as she walked towards the exit entrance when her eyes caught him heading towards a small shower room in the corner of the workshop. Just head back to the dorms. I'll be there in a jiffy. She heard Naruto shout. Nodding, the girl turned back and opened the door towards the rest of the academy. Best to give him privacy. Seeing that it was still rather early, Purah decided to get breakfast in the cafeteria alone, since her team was still asleep. Her mind wandered off as she ate, thinking on what classes would her team take in her training regimen. She still needed to be in shape, after all. Starting off without me? I'm hurt. Naruto, now dressed in Beacon's attire, joked while he approached the table she sat at, a bowl of steaming ramen on his hands as he sat down across from her. Snapping out of her stupor, the girl looked away, a tad bit of embarrassed of not inviting him. I'm sorry. She apologized sincerely. Naruto didn't respond, having been too busy digging into his own breakfast for the day, eating his ramen happily, any trace of tiredness seemingly gone. Purah took this as him accepting her apology, before she too continued to eat. The two finished shortly and began to their walk back to the dorms that housed the students of the academy in a moderate pace, unaware of the chaos that was currently happening on their dorm, specifically, their dorm across them. As the two walked towards their dorm, Purah glanced at the blonde before inhaling a bit loud, prompting the whiskered teen to look at her with a raised eyebrow. I've been meaning to ask, the Redeed started. Ever since you showed up and assisted us back in Emerald Forest, I can't help but be curious on how does your armor work. Naruto laughed and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, it's mostly thanks to his, he said, pointing towards his chest, where a shape of a circular object poked from the fabric of his uniform. A bright but dim glow emanating from it, causing Purah to stare at it in wonder and amazement. This is miniaturized arc reactor, made by yours truly. Naruto couldn't help but brag about his creation. Powered by a bit of dust and electricity, keeps shrapnel out of my chest and lets my heart beat soundly without fear of it being pierced by said shrapnel. Purah was impressed by this, though her mind caught on when her teammate mentioned shrapnel. There's shrapnel stuck inside you? She repeated softly, both horrified and worried for the boy's state. Got it a month ago, don't ask, it's a long story. Naruto said, a bit uncomfortable at the mention of his injuries from the White Fang. The Redeed nodded, understanding the blonde's discomfort. She knew only some parts of the story that was broadcasted in Remnant, but nonetheless, she knew that it was probably scarring for him and for the sake of the blonde next to her, decided to change the subject. Luckily she didn't have to. They had arrived to their dorm just in time. Before either Naruto or Purah could open the door, a loud shout was heard from behind, then a red blur speedily passed them, a trail of rose petals following the way. The only word the whiskered blonde could understand was class. Suddenly, the door to Team JNNPR's dorm opened and John's head popped out, along with Nora and Ren, their faces filled with confusion. Class. John parroted, confused. A second later, all the teens present caught up with what happened and JNR, of Team JNNPR, fell. We're going to be late. Naruto shouted, grabbing Purah's hand, he dashed off with a Redeed in tow, careful to jump across his teammates to get out of the dormitory of Beacon. Wait for us. Was John's cry before he and the rest of Team JNNPR ran after their teammates in a hurry. The team eventually made it to their first class without further incident, just a few seconds away from an equally rushing Team RWBY. A few minutes into their class, however, they wished they weren't on time. Monsters. Demons. Prowlers of the night. Peter Port, a short and rather chubby man, bombastically announced to his class, his mustache jiggling with every word. Behind him, sketches and diagrams of various Grimm were drawn at the board, each picture annotated with unreadable handwriting. The students in the class appeared to be quite bored as they listened to him. That is, except for Weiss. Yes, the creatures of Grimm have many names, but I merely refer them as prey, haha. He finished off with a laugh. None of the students reacted. As Port babbled on, Naruto tried his hardest to stay awake, but for the sake of Aum, he just couldn't in his life to take the man in front of him seriously. John was also trying to listen, but by the looks of his eyes drooping, the blonde could tell he was about to hit his desk any second now. He couldn't blame him. Purah was attempting to look interested, but even she knew the professor was a bore, as did Nora, who didn't even appear to be interested, instead opting to doodle whatever she drew in her notebook. Ren looked just the same, which made Naruto wonder if the guy could even feel happiness at all. Naruto sighed. Why did he accept Ozpin's offer again? The only thing that caught his interest was when the professor tried to flirt with Yang. Which was both creepy and amusing at the same time. Naruto shook his head and opened his notebook before he started to scribble down ideas and notes for the developing Mark IV that he would be able to use his semblance with. His attention was torn away from his notes when he heard Weiss cry out in anger. He looked from where he was sitting and watched as the Schnee leave the room and retrieve her gear. As they waited, the professor shortly left and returned with a cage that seemed to be rattling. Definitely a small type of grim. Naruto thought while the class waited for the Schnee. From the sounds of it, it might be a Bordisk, but that's all speculation on my part. The blonde leaned forward as Weiss came back, now armed with her rapier. Cheers and yells came from RWBY, though it looked like Weiss seemed to continuously grow frustrated from the appreciative comments her team gave her. When Port opened the cage, a Bordisk came charging out, intent on ramming the girl in front of it. Naruto frowned when Weiss started to slow down and grew sloppier as the fight went on. Her movements that used to be precise were now slow and expected, making her an easy target. Ironically, the blonde knew that RWBY was why the girl was getting frustrated. While he didn't pay attention to whatever story Port was ranting about, he did take notice of the way the leader of Team RWBY acted, and he knew Weiss long enough that she, already coupled with her dislike of having not getting picked as leader, didn't tolerate the sort of attitude RWBY was displaying. He honestly blamed Winter. A loud and anguished roar snapped Naruto out of his stupor, and he looked back just in time to see Weiss propelling herself towards the exposed belly of the Grim, allowing her to stab it at its weak point, causing them to slid forward, the Bordisk giving a pained squeal as Weiss kept it at bay, collapsing to her knees, panting in exhaustion. Bravo. Bravo. Port congratulated with a smile under his busy mustache. It seems we are indeed in the presence of a true huntress in training. He shifted his gaze towards the clock in the room. Though it looks like that is all the time we have today. He said. Be sure to cover the assigned readings and stay vigilant. Port rose a finger to the air. Class dismissed. Weiss glared at the professor heatedly before she silently stormed off on her own, her team, RWBY especially, looking at her teammate in concern. Without a moment passing, Naruto quickly vaulted over the table he sat on, alerting his team and RWBY, though he paid no heed to it, dashing straight where Weiss left. He exited out of the classroom and entered a hallway just in time to see the heiress turn a corner whilst muttering to herself angrily. Dogging lightly, Naruto rounded the same corner and saw the girl walking away. "Oi, princess," he called out. She ignored him. His eye twitched. Why does she have to act so bitchy when she's irritated? He stepped forward slightly, getting closer to her. Weiss. He tried again, his tone more serious. The white-haired girl continued to ignore him. He sighed and ran up to her, grabbing her arm lightly. Weiss. Said teen jerked her arm away from his in an angered manner, rounding and looking at him with same amount of anger and frustration in her eyes. What? She snapped. What the hell was going on back there? Naruto asked irritably, his thumb jerking back to Port's classroom. None of your business, Namikas. Weiss growled, her frustration leaking into her voice. It's my business when it involves you, Weiss. Naruto shot back calmly, much to the girl's anger. Their business? The Schnee repeated in disbelief before her anger came back tenfold. Since when was my problems your business, Namikas? She retorted. I only agreed to help you because it involves my family, so don't think for 1 second that we're friends, because we are not. Weiss gritted out. I've studied and trained and quite frankly, I deserve better. She ranted. RWBY has done nothing to earn her position. Back in the forest she acted like a child and only continued to do so. Weiss said. Then you come along, meddling with my business as usual. So stop acting like the world revolves around you, Namikas, because it certainly doesn't. Then stop acting like an immature brat. Naruto snapped back, causing the girl to flinch at the unexpected anger the previously calm blonde displayed. Look, I know that you're pissed because Osban didn't choose you to be team leader, but that doesn't mean you should dish it on RWBY who was trying to help you. Naruto said. For Aum's sake, Weiss, she's only 15. Give her some chance to grow before spouting some bullshit that you deserve better. The blonde shouted. The whiskered teen stopped, dragging his hand down his face in an effort to calm himself, trying to avoid looking Weiss in the eye because Aum it made him want to scream some more. If you really think you deserve better, then prove it. Don't act like a kid throwing a temper tantrum to a world that will never hear you. Silence engulfed the duo. Weiss was speechless on what he had said, her mind in a lost haze, while Naruto tried to recompose himself after his outburst. His eyes softened when he saw the slight hurt yet shocked look on the heiress face that she tried to hide, but even she knew that he could see past her facade. Naruto sighed and clasped a hand over his eyes. You're going to be the death of me, princess. He muttered just loud enough for Weiss to hear. She yelped when Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder, relaxing when she saw him give an apologetic smile. I'm not trying to tell you to completely follow RWBY, just give her a chance, Yakno. She might be a good team leader if you act nice. The Schnee huffed, crossing her arms as Naruto retracted his hand with a small laugh. I suppose I have been harsh on her. She admitted softly. That's the spirit. Naruto smiled before he walked away from the girl, hands behind his head as he left. Weiss hid a small smile on her face before she too walked away, heading for her team. The two were blissfully unaware of Osmond standing in the corner of the hallway, smiling, having watched the entire scene between the two. Finally, after a day of boring and mostly useless classes, Team JNNPR opened their dorm and switched on the lights, surprised when a new furniture was added in. "Thank Naruto cried before he promptly collapsed on his new bed, which was situated between Jaune and Purah's beds. The rest of the team followed suit, groaning in relief at the feel of comfy mattresses. "You know," the blonde started. "We don't really know each other, excluding Nora and Ren. So, how about we do a little game of getting to know each other?" he suggested. Nora jumped up and seated herself in a cross-legged position, her usual hyperactive energy on full display as she grinned. "Sounds like a plan." Purah rose from her bed, her blazer discarded, while she freed her hair from her ponytail, as Ren sat up a few moments later. The four looked at Jaune, who blinked in confusion. "Well?" Naruto asked. Sorry, I wasn't listening." The boy weakly chuckled, much to his team's amusement. "Whiskers said that we should get to know each other, silly." Nora giggled at her leader's expression. "How about it, boss?" Sure." Clapping his hands, Naruto cleared his throat. "I'll go first. I'm Naruto Namikas. I like ramen, my AI, Kurama, machinery, and my precious people. I dislike arrogant pricks. The time it takes to make ramen, and the white fang." After he said that, Naruto unconsciously rubbed his arc reactor at the mention of the group, thankful that it went unnoticed, save for Purah, who frowned at this. "My hobbies include tinkering with almost everything, creating something that blows Atlas's tech out of the water, and making ramen. My dream is to one day let Namika's industries flourish like what my dad would have wanted and protect those who I consider precious." The Mistral champion smiled at her teammate's dream. It was rather simple if one were to look at it. She could understand why he would want to make his father proud, but she was truly happy that he also wanted to protect his precious people, which made her smile grow brighter. Naruto turned towards Jaune. "Your turn, oh great and mighty leader." He smirked. "Oh." Jaune rubbed the back of his head. "My name's Jaune Arc, I have 7 sisters, and my likes are gardening, cooking, and my family." He said nervously, but the appreciative looks from his team made him go on. "My dislikes are those who don't consider others as equals or see themselves as below them, and grim. My hobbies include everything I stated on my likes except the family, of course." He laughed. "My dream is to one day be a successful huntsman just like my father and grandfather before me." Naruto patted his back as he smirked. "Not that hard, was it?" Oh. Me next." Nora exclaimed, bouncing in her bed excitedly while she raised her hand. Giggling when the others mentioned her to go on. "My name's Nora Valkyrie." The girl started with an excited nature. "I like Ren's pancakes, Magnald and the color pink. I dislike mean people, bad guys in general, and those who hurt Ren or me. Hobbies are blowing stuff up with Magnald. And eating Ren's pancakes. My dream is one day be the queen of the castle and ruler of all pancakes." The others chuckled on the girl's dream, whilst Ren silently shook his head with a small smile on his face. Purah chose to take her turn next. "My name is Purah Nikos." She started. "I like training, my family and friends. I dislike people who would lower themselves to bullying, those who use others for their own gain, and those who think they are above others. My hobbies include training, studying, and hanging out with my friends. My dream is to one day become a teacher to pass on my knowledge to the next generation and maybe settle down once I do." Now that almost all were done, the four turned and looked at the last member who was silent throughout the entire exchange. Ren saw the looks before he sighed and cleared his throat, ignoring Nora's cheer. "My name is Ren. I enjoy peace and quiet, any sort of tea, particularly jasmine, meditating, and certain people. My dislikes are those who interrupt my peace and quiet." As he said that, the teen cracked an eye at Nora who was completely oblivious. "My hobbies are meditating, drinking tea, and sleeping. My dream is to simply live my life as best as I can." As the introductions were finished, the team delved into conversations with each other, often for trivial things until curfew came about. The boys agreed that the girls would take the showers first, and they came in second. After a quick shower, everyone was ready to sleep. Naruto came out of the shower, having been last of the group. He was dressed in only a black tank top that had his arc reactor shining brightly from his chest, whilst his legs were covered by a simple pair of sweatpants. Nora, now clad in her pajamas, stopped bouncing in her bed when she saw the reactor. With wonder and amazement in her eyes, she zipped towards her teammate and stared at it closely. "Oop." Before lightly poking at it with her finger. "Nora." Ren called out to the girl. "That's rude. Apologize." The girl giggled. "Sorry." She said excitingly, before going back to her bed in seconds. Her, now clad in her own pajama, greeted him, Naruto grinning at her in return. "Looking good there, Purah," he complimented her. "Thank you," she shyly replied. Jaune came back into the room, now dressed in his onesie, which Nora still laughed at. And Naruto too, since it was his first time seeing his fellow blonde in such a state. "It's comfortable," the teen defended. As the teens began to prepare for the night, the five laid in their own respective beds, Nora already dozing off while Ren and Jaune follow suit. When Naruto closed his eyes, he heard the soft voice of his teammate. "Good night, Naruto." "Night, Purah." "Look out." A small crash rocketed the warehouse. In the dead of the night in Vale, abandoned warehouse currently shook as screams and grunts came from the inside of the storage facility. The Faunus, dressed in white and black, a mask covering his face, grunted as another White Fang member flew across the warehouse and into the metal wall, impacting it with a loud crash that made him wince. He cursed and quickly grabbed a crate that had the label of Namikas Industries in the corner, hefting it up and made a beeline to the doors of the facility. Only for a red and gold hand to stop him. "You're not going anywhere, buddy." The armored figure behind him increased the grip on his shoulder, causing the White Fang member to scream in pain, dropping the crate and collapsing to the ground. He quickly grabbed hold of his pistol and aimed for the head of his assailant. But his actions were immediately stopped by another red and gold gauntlet. Nevertheless, the man fired again and again, all completely useless against the armor-wearing teen in front of him. Naruto kneed him in the shin before he aimed his palm to the masked face and firing it, sending the man crashing to the ground. Bullets hit him over and over again, prompting the armored teen to look back. Dozens of White Fang grunts fired at him, reloading and shooting again and again. Naruto tilted his head as his visor zoomed in, identifying the weapons to be Namika's property. "Kurama, disable any nearby weapons in the area." Like a snap of a finger, the guns suddenly stopped, much to the chagrin of the grunts using them. They were too distracted in checking their rifles that they never saw their armored opponent propelling himself towards them until it was too late. He knocked down one man before he fired a blast to another beside him. Naruto activated his thrusters and flew up. His visor quickly targeting the remaining White Fang in the vicinity. Two shoulder pads came up, revealing to be small mounted turrets on his shoulders. The turrets fired, incapacitating the grunts in a second. He hovered down and quietly landed on the pavement of his company's warehouse. Around him were scattered weapons, White Fang members, and grunts alike. The White Fang member behind him hastily got up as the armored figure inspected the others. Grabbing a pistol, which wasn't from Namikas Industries, he approached the teen silently and aimed at the head. Before he fired, Naruto's head snapped forward, surprising him slightly. He stood up and heard a gasp from behind him. Turning around, the blonde was met with a White Fang grunt that stupidly tried to shoot at him. "Gee, get away from me." The blonde continued to walk forward. "Stay back." Naruto caught the man by the neck and lifted him up. His armor scuffed and scratched, only giving a more intimidating vibe to him. "Don't ever think of doing that again." He reared his armored fist back. And the man was sent flying. "Kurama, contact Vale Police Department, have them know what happened here." With that, Naruto activated his thrusters and shot out of the hole on the rooftop before he headed towards Beacon. He needed some sleep. What if Soldier Naruto and RWBY harem, and thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.